The emergency broadcast echoed through the halls of the Galactic Council chamber for the third day in a row. The voice of the Zerathi ambassador crackled with static and desperation, growing weaker with each transmission. Ambassador Kixrath's chittering speech, normally smooth and melodic, had become broken and hoarse. Please, anyone who can hear this, the plague has taken half our worlds. Our children hide in the deep shelters. We need help. We need medicine. We need hope. The council chamber remained silent. 200 species sat in their designated seats, some breathing oxygen, others methane, some existing as pure energy held in containment fields. All of them turned away from the broadcast. The consortium chancellor, a towering crystalline being named Vitrell, raised one geometric appendage and silenced the transmission with a gesture. The matter is settled, Vitrell announced, his voice like wind chimes in a storm. The Zerathi system is declared a Level 9 quarantine zone. All traffic is forbidden. The automated defense grid is now active. Any vessel attempting to breach the quarantine will be destroyed automatically. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The decision was logical. The decision was necessary. The decision was unanimous. The plague that had struck the Zerathi worlds was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. It killed within 72 hours of first symptoms. It spread through the air, through water, through touch. Worst of all, it jumped between species. The Zerathi had been hosting a trade conference when the first cases appeared. Within a week, 17 different species had contracted the disease. 16 of those species had lost their representatives before they could escape the system. The galaxy's finest medical minds had studied the samples sent before the quarantine began. Their conclusion was absolute. There was no cure. There was no treatment. There was only death or isolation. To attempt a rescue would be to spread the plague across civilized space. One species dying was a tragedy. 100 species dying would be an apocalypse. The mathematics were simple. The ethics were clear. The Zerathi had to be abandoned. Vitrell dismissed the council session. As the representatives filed out, returning to their embassies and vessels, not one looked back at the silent emergency broadcast channel. The Zerathi would scream into the void until their voices failed. Then, there would only be silence. 3 systems away, the human cargo vessel Defiant Hope drifted through standard space, hauling medical supplies to a colony on the rim. The ship was old, her hull scarred from decades of service. But her engines ran clean, and her crew ran cleaner. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair, reviewing manifest reports, when Communications Officer Maria Torres suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange on the emergency channels." Sarah looked up from her datapad. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with black hair pulled back in a tight bun, and eyes that had seen too many hard decisions. "Strange how? It's a distress call. Zerathi language. But it's on a loop. Like it's been broadcasting for days. And there's something else." Maria adjusted her headset, her brown fingers dancing across the control panel. "It's coming from inside a quarantine zone." The bridge fell silent. Sarah stood and walked to the communications station. "Play it. Play it." The voice that emerged from the speakers was barely a whisper. "This is Shelter Complex 7. Zerath Prime. We have 6,000 civilians. 4,000 are children. Our supplies will last 3 more days. The plague has not reached the deep shelters, but we cannot leave. Cannot reach the surface. Please, if anyone can hear this, we are still alive." Sarah closed her eyes. Behind her, the bridge crew waited. There were only 12 of them aboard. All human. All veterans of the merchant marine. They had hauled cargo through pirate raids, asteroid fields, and solar storms. They had seen things that would make other species flee in terror. But this was different. "Maria, pull up everything on that quarantine zone." The data streamed across the main view screen. The Zerathi system. Population: 14 billion. Current status: Level 9 quarantine. Total blockade authorized by Galactic Council. Automated defense grid active. Penalty for breach: immediate destruction. Medical assessment: plague mortality rate 100%. Contagion factor: extreme. Estimated survival time for victims: 72 hours maximum. Recommended action: avoid at all costs. Jesus, whispered First Officer James Rodriguez. He was a big man, former military, with dark skin and a scar across his left cheek from a shuttle crash. 14 billion. We're 14 billion, corrected Engineer Wei Zhang, a thin woman with gray-streaked hair. Look at the date on this quarantine order. It's been 3 weeks. If the plague kills in 72 hours, no one needed her to finish. The math was brutal and simple. Sarah stared at the view screen. 14 billion souls, an entire species, dying alone while the galaxy built walls to keep them contained. She thought about the voice from Shelter Complex 7. 6,000 people. 4,000 children. 3 days of supplies. Captain? Maria's voice was soft. What do we do? Every person on the bridge knew what the regulations said. What the Galactic Council had ordered. What every sane being in the universe would do. They would change course, deliver their cargo, file a report about the distress signal, and let someone else deal with it. Except there was no one else. The entire galaxy had already dealt with it by building a wall and looking away. Sarah turned to face her crew. These 12 people had followed her through situations that had no business turning out well. They trusted her. They were also human, which meant they were clinically insane by the standards of every other species in space. Earth was not a kind mother. Earth was a nightmare world where diseases mutated every season, where predators hunted in packs, where the weather itself could kill in 100 different ways. 99% of every species that had ever lived on Earth had gone extinct. Humans survived by being too stubborn to die and too crazy to know when to quit. Pull up the distress signal again, Sarah ordered. All of them. Every shelter that's broadcasting. Maria worked her console. Dozens of signals appeared on the screen. Shelter Complex 7 with 6,000 people. Shelter Complex 3 with 12,000. Shelter Complex 19 with 800. On and on. Hundreds of thousands of Zerathi, hiding underground. Cut off from the surface. Cut off from each other. Cut off from the galaxy. Total count? Sarah asked. Wei Zhang ran the numbers. Approximately 2.3 million individuals in the registered shelters. Unknown number in unregistered locations. 2.3 million people. Not all of the Zerathi. Not even a fraction of what had been lost. But 2.3 million living, breathing people who were going to die because no one would help them. Sarah looked at James. How long to reach the Zerathi system at maximum burn? 16 hours, James answered immediately. He already knew what she was thinking. But Captain, that automated defense grid, can it stop us? Probably not before we breach the system. The grid is designed to keep people out over time, not stop a ship willing to ram through. But the Galactic Council will know the moment we cross the line. They'll send warships. How long before those warships arrive? James calculated. 48 hours minimum, maybe 72. Sarah did her own math. 16 hours to get there, 72 hours before the Council's military could respond. That gave them 56 hours to do something impossible. Opinions? Sarah looked around the bridge. Medical Officer Lisa Park spoke first. She was Korean American, young for her position, but she had worked epidemic response on Earth during the Brisbane fever outbreak. That plague they're describing? It sounds like a cytokine storm amplified by an aggressive viral vector. If that's what it is, human immune systems might be able to handle it. Might. We've survived worse on Earth. Might isn't good enough, Wei countered. If we go in there and get infected, we don't just die. We become carriers. We could bring this back to human space. We could. Or we could save 2.3 million people. Tactical Officer Marcus Webb drummed his fingers on his console. He was the youngest on the bridge, barely 25. But he had sharp eyes and sharper instincts. The Council won't see it as rescue. They'll see it as contamination breach. They might quarantine Earth itself. Let them try, growled Maria. We've been the new kids in the galaxy for 50 years. The Council treats us like we're dangerous animals anyway. Maybe it's time we act like it. Sarah held up a hand for silence. This isn't a debate about human pride. This is about whether we can live with ourselves if we don't try. Show of hands. Who votes we go in? 12 hands rose into the air. Not one hesitated. Sarah felt something tight in her chest loosen. This was her crew. These were her people. Crazy, stubborn, impossible humans who looked at certain death and saw a chance to do something right. All right then. Sarah sat back in her command chair. James, set course for Zareth Prime, maximum burn. Wei, I want every environmental suit we have prepped and ready. Lisa, start reviewing everything we know about epidemic response. Marcus, pull up the schematics for that defense grid. If we're going to ram through it, I want to know where to hit. Maria, send a message back to Earth. Tell them what we're doing and why. If we don't make it back, someone should know we tried. The bridge erupted into activity. The Defiant Hope's engines flared to life, pushing the old cargo ship to speeds she hadn't reached in years. The course was locked. The die was cast. As they accelerated toward the quarantine zone, Maria turned from her console. Captain, I've got one more thing. It's a response from the Galactic Council. They detected our course change. What do they say? Maria read the message. Human vessel, Defiant Hope. You are ordered to alter course immediately. Entry into Zarathi quarantine zone is forbidden by Council law. Violation will result in destruction of vessel and permanent sanctions against Earth. Acknowledge and comply. Sarah smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a species that had climbed to the top of Earth's food chain by refusing to accept the word impossible. Send a reply. Tell them, we're human. We don't leave people to die. If they want to stop us, they're welcome to try. The message transmitted across space, bouncing through relay stations, reaching the Galactic Council chamber, where Vitrell still presided. The crystalline being read the message twice, unable to process the illogic. They're going in anyway, an aide whispered. That is irrational, Vitrell stated. They're human. Vitrell had no response to that. Humanity was still a puzzle to the older species. They came from a death world, a hell planet that should have produced either apex predators or cowering prey. Instead, it produced something the galaxy had never seen. A species that looked at suffering and ran toward it instead of away. In the Defiant Hope's medical bay, Lisa Park prepared equipment that the Galactic Council's best doctors had already declared useless. In engineering, Wei Zhang rerouted power to shields that would need to hold against weapons designed to sterilize plague ships. On the bridge, Sarah Chen stared at the growing image of the Zarathi system and thought about those 2.3 million people waiting in the dark. The galaxy had left them to die. The math said they couldn't be saved. The logic was absolute. The decision was final. But humans had never been good at accepting what couldn't be done. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and extinction events. They had looked at death 1,000 times and said. The Defiant Hope raced toward the quarantine zone, her engines burning bright against the black of space. Behind her, the galaxy watched and wondered what madness drove these Deathworlders to throw themselves at the impossible. Inside Shelter Complex 7 on Zareth Prime, Young Zixith sat beside the failing radio, still broadcasting her hopeless message into the void. She was only 12 years old by Zerathi standards, her chitin still soft, her antennae still learning to read the chemical signals of her people's language. She had been broadcasting for 3 days, ever since the adults had grown too sick to continue. She did not expect an answer. No one did. Then the radio crackled to life with a new voice. It was strange, alien, speaking in heavily accented Zerathi. Shelter Complex 7. This is the human vessel Defiant Hope. We received your distress call. We are 16 hours out. Hold on. Help is coming. Zixith stared at the radio. Then she ran through the shelter, screaming the impossible news. The humans were coming. The Death Worlders were coming. Someone still cared. The automated defense grid detected the Defiant Hope when she was still 2 light hours from the Zerathi system. Weapons platforms that had floated dormant for 3 weeks suddenly woke, their targeting systems locking onto the approaching vessel. Warning broadcasts transmitted on all frequencies in 47 languages. Attention approaching vessel. You are entering a level 9 quarantine zone. Turn back immediately or you will be destroyed. This is your only warning. On the bridge of the Defiant Hope, Marcus Webb watched the defense grid light up on his tactical display. Captain, I count 38 weapons platforms. They're charging weapons. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they open fire. Sarah stood behind his station, studying the display. Where are the weak points? Here, here, and here. Marcus highlighted 3 gaps in the grid. But they're not really weak points. The platforms can shift to cover them. It's more like slower points. If we come in fast enough, and at the right angle, we can minimize our exposure time. How fast is fast enough? Marcus did the math. Faster than this ship was designed to go. Sarah turned to Wei Zhang at the engineering station. Can you give me faster? Wei's fingers flew across her controls, pulling up engine specifications that were 50 years old. If I reroute power from life support, artificial gravity, and the cargo bay heating systems, I can boost our speed by 18%. For about 20 minutes. Then the engines will either explode or melt. 20 minutes gets us through? 20 minutes gets us through or kills us trying. Sarah nodded. That was good enough. Do it. Marcus, plot the course. James, as soon as we break through, I want a direct course to Zereth Prime. Fastest possible landing vector. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. This was not the first time they had done something technically suicidal. Probably would not be the last, assuming they survived. Captain, Maria called from communications. I'm getting a transmission from the Galactic Council. It's Chancellor Vitrell himself. Put him through. The view screen flickered, and the crystalline form of Vitrell appeared. Behind him, the council chamber was in chaos. Representatives shouting in dozens of languages. Vitrell's voice cut through clearly. Captain Chen, I am ordering you to stand down. What you are attempting is not heroic. It is foolish and dangerous. That plague will kill you. If by some miracle it does not, you will become carriers. You will spread it beyond the quarantine. Millions could die across the galaxy. Sarah looked at the crystalline being who had sentenced an entire species to death. With respect, Chancellor, millions are already dying. 2.3 million people in those shelters are going to die in the next 72 hours if no one helps them. You've decided they're acceptable losses. I haven't. This is not a question of compassion versus cruelty, Vitrell said, his voice chiming with what might have been frustration. This is mathematics. Logic. The plague cannot be stopped. All you will do is die with them. Maybe, Sarah agreed. Or maybe we'll figure something out. Humans are pretty good at figuring things out when we're desperate. We had to be. Our planet spent millions of years trying to kill us. Your planet made you reckless. Our planet made us survivors. Vitrell was silent for a moment. Then he spoke more quietly. Captain Chen, I have reviewed your species file. I know about the diseases you have overcome, the plagues you have survived. But this is not Earth. You have no immunity to this pathogen. Your medical officer's hypothesis about cytokine response is interesting, but untested. You are gambling with not just your lives, but potentially the safety of the entire galaxy. Then the galaxy better hope we win the gamble. Sarah glanced at Marcus, who held up 3 fingers. 3 minutes, until weapons range. Chancellor, I'm going to tell you something about humans. We have a saying on Earth. We're all we've got. Most species hear that and think it means we're alone. Isolated. It doesn't mean that at all. It means when things get dark, when everyone else runs, we stand together. Those Zerathi down there, right now, they're part of our we. So we're going in. I will order the defense grid to destroy you. You already did. We're going in anyway. Vitrell stared at her through the screen, his crystalline face unreadable. Then he made a sound like breaking glass. It might have been a sigh. Then, I will do something I have never done before. I will hope that illogic prevails. Because if you fail, Captain, the Council will have no choice but to sterilize that entire system. And if you carry the plague out, we will have no choice but to quarantine Earth itself. The stakes are higher than you know. The transmission cut off. Sarah turned back to her crew. You heard the man. We fail. Earth gets locked down. No pressure. Just another Tuesday, James muttered, which got a nervous laugh from the bridge crew. Marcus counted down. Weapons, platforms. Going hot in 90 seconds. Recommend we start evasive maneuvers in 60. Sarah sat in her command chair and gripped the armrests. Way. Give me that speed boost. Marcus. Execute your approach vector. Maria. Keep broadcasting on all frequencies that we're a rescue vessel. Maybe the platforms will hesitate. Some round. The platforms are automated, Marcus pointed out. They don't hesitate. Can't hurt to try. The Defiant Hope surged forward as Wei dumped emergency power into the engines. The old cargo ship groaned, her hull shaking as she pushed past her design specifications. The weapons platforms tracked her approach, plasma cannons swiveling to aim. Entering weapons range, Marcus announced. Here we go. The first platform fired. A bolt of superheated plasma streaked through space, missing the Defiant Hope's bow by 100 meters. Marcus threw the ship into a rolling dive, using the manual controls because no computer could predict the random pattern he was flying. More platforms fired. The space around them became a light show of deadly energy. One bolt clipped their port shield, sending power fluctuations through the ship. Emergency alarms blared. Shields at 70%, Marcus called out. Another bolt. Another hit. The ship shuddered. Shields at 40%. Sarah watched the tactical display. They were halfway through the grid. Just a few more seconds. The engines screamed as Wei pushed them beyond their limits. Temperature warnings flashed red across every console. A plasma bolt hit them dead center. The shields flared and collapsed. The ship's lights flickered. Shields down, Marcus shouted. Next hit goes straight through the hull. Wei, I need those engines, Sarah ordered. They're already at 130%. Any more, and we blow. Then give me 140% for 10 seconds. Wei's hands moved without hesitation. The engines roared like dying stars. The Defiant Hope leaped forward. Faster than any cargo ship, had a right to move. Plasma bolts filled the space where they had been a heartbeat before. Clear! Marcus gasped. We're through the grid. The crew erupted in cheers. Then the cheers died as everyone realized what they had just done. They were inside the quarantine zone. There was no turning back now. If the plague killed them, they would die in this system, their bodies burned to ash by sterilization protocols. Status report, Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. James ran through the systems. Hull integrity at 85%. Shields offline. Will take 30 minutes to recharge. Engines running hot, but functional. We're alive, Captain. For now, Wei added darkly. Those engines are not going to last much longer. We've got maybe 6 hours of flight time before we need to shut down for repairs. Sarah nodded. 6 hours was enough. It had to be. Maria, broadcast to all shelters. Tell them we're here and we're coming down. James, get me that landing vector. Already plotted, James said. Shelter Complex 7 is our first stop. It's the closest to our entry point, and their situation is the most critical. 3 days of supplies means they're probably down to hours by now. The Defiant Hope descended toward Zareth Prime. Through the view screen, they got their first clear look at the dying world. The planet was beautiful, all blue oceans and green continents, white clouds drifting across a peaceful sky. It looked like paradise. Then they dropped into the atmosphere and saw the cities. Mother of God, Lisa whispered. The cities were graveyards. Massive metropolitan areas that should have blazed with lights were dark and silent. Streets that should have been filled with traffic were empty. Buildings stood intact, but lifeless. Here and there, fires burned unchecked where automated systems had failed. The Zarathi had not been destroyed by war or natural disaster. They had simply stopped living. I'm reading bodies, Marcus said quietly. Thousands of them. Just lying where they fell. The crew stared in silence. This was what genocide looked like when it came from nature instead of malice. An entire species, wiped out by something invisible, while the galaxy watched and did nothing. Shelter Complex 7, coming up, James announced, his voice rough with emotion. The shelter entrance was in a mountain valley, far from the dead cities. As they approached, Marcus suddenly tensed. Captain, I'm reading weapons signatures. Ground-based defense turrets. They're tracking us. Those would be the shelter's automated defenses, Lisa said. They probably went on high alert when the plague hit. They might see us as a threat. Maria, hail them on all frequencies. Let them know we're friendly. Maria sent the transmission. Shelter Complex 7. This is the human vessel Defiant Hope. We received your distress signal. We are here to help. Please do not fire on us. For a long moment, there was only static. Then, a young voice crackled through the speakers. Human ship? You came? You really came? It was Zixith, the young Zarathi who had been broadcasting the distress signal. Her voice shook with disbelief and hope. Sarah leaned forward. We really came. We're going to land outside your main entrance. We have medical supplies and personnel. But we need you to do something for us first. We need you to tell us about the plague. How it spreads. What the symptoms are. Everything you know. I will try. The adults, they are very sick. But I have been watching. Learning. I can tell you what I have seen. That's perfect. You're doing great. Stand by. The Defiant Hope settled onto the valley floor with a groan of stressed landing gear. Sarah stood and looked at her crew. Lisa, you're with me. James, you have command. No one else leaves this ship until we know what we're dealing with. Understood? Understood, James said. He did not look happy, but he knew the protocol. Someone had to stay behind. Someone had to be able to take off if everything went wrong. Sarah and Lisa met in the cargo bay, pulling on environmental suits that looked flimsy compared to the heavy quarantine gear that other species used. Human suits were lighter, more flexible. Designed for a species that had learned to move fast when death was chasing them. The other species thought human protective equipment was inadequate. Humans thought other species were too slow to survive. Wei joined them, suited up and carrying a large equipment case. You're not going down there without engineering support, she said, cutting off Sarah's protest. If their life support systems are failing, you'll need someone who can fix them. Sarah wanted to argue. She also knew Wei was right. Fine. But you follow Lisa's contamination protocols exactly. Yes, Captain. They cycled through the airlock and stepped onto Zarathi soil. The air outside smelled wrong, even through the suit filters, smoke and decay, and something chemical that Sarah could not identify. In the distance, one of the dead cities burned. The shelter entrance was a massive door set into the mountainside. As they approached, it cracked open just wide enough for a figure to slip through. Zixith was small, barely up to Sarah's chest, her insectoid body covered in pale blue chitin. Her antennae twitched nervously as she saw the humans. "You are smaller than I expected," Zixith said in careful galactic standard. "The council records say humans are apex predators from a death world. I thought you would be bigger." Sarah smiled behind her helmet. "We don't need to be big. We just need to be stubborn. Can you take us to your sick?" Zixith led them into the shelter. The corridors were wide and tall, built for a species that was physically larger than humans. Emergency lights flickered overhead. The air inside was stale despite the life support systems. They passed Zarathi sitting against the walls, their movements slow and labored. Some looked up as the humans passed, their compound eyes reflecting confusion and fear. Others were too far gone to notice. The smell was worse inside, illness and fear and death waiting in the shadows. "This is our medical center," Zixith said, leading them into a large chamber. "We have 300 sick here. More in the shelters beyond. Our doctors died in the first week. Those of us who remain, we do what we can, but we do not know how to fight this." Lisa immediately went to the nearest patient, scanning with her medical equipment. Sarah watched as the young doctor's expression changed from concern to confusion, to something that might have been excitement. "Captain," Lisa said slowly, "I need to run more tests. But this plague, it's not what the council said it was." "What do you mean?" "I mean they were wrong. Completely wrong. This isn't some unstoppable super plague. It's bad, yes, but it's not impossible. It's a hemorrhagic fever virus combined with a bacterial co-infection. Nasty combination. But humans have dealt with similar things on Earth. Ebola, Marburg, dengue. We know how to fight this." Sarah felt hope bloom in her chest. "You can treat it?" I think so. But I need to confirm something first." Lisa turned to Zixith. "The Galactic Council said this plague kills in 72 hours. Is that true?" "For most, yes," Zixith confirmed. "But some last longer. 5 days. A week. Those with stronger constitutions fight longer." "And you?" Lisa asked. "You've been exposed for weeks. Why aren't you sick?" Zixith's antennae drooped. "I do not know. Many of the young ones, like me, we have not gotten sick. We thought perhaps we were just slow to show symptoms." Lisa's scanner beeped. She looked at the results and actually laughed. "Your immune system is fighting it off naturally." She turned to Sarah. "Captain, this plague isn't unstoppable. It's just deadly to adults with fully developed immune systems. The young ones, the ones whose immune systems are still flexible, still learning they can beat it. Just like humans do with childhood diseases." Sarah processed this. The council's medical teams. They only tested adults, didn't they? Must have. They saw 100% mortality in adults and declared the whole plague untreatable. They didn't think to check the juveniles. Probably assumed if adults couldn't survive, children certainly couldn't. They didn't understand that sometimes being young and flexible is better than being old and rigid. "Can you make a treatment?" "I think so. We'll need to synthesize antibodies from the immune individuals, combine it with broad-spectrum antivirals and antibiotics to handle both the viral and bacterial components. It won't be a cure, but it will give their immune systems time to learn to fight back." "How long to set up production?" "With our equipment, 8 hours to develop the treatment. Then, we can start treating people immediately." Sarah looked around the medical center at the dying Zarathi. 8 hours. They could do this. They could actually do this. Then the whole shelter shook. Emergency alarms began to wail. Marcus's voice crackled over Sarah's comm. "Captain, we've got a problem. The Galactic Council just jumped a fleet into the system. 20 warships. And they're not here to help. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. They're ordering us to evacuate immediately. They say if we don't leave in the next 6 hours, they're going to sterilize the entire planet." Sarah closed her eyes. Of course the Council would do this. They could not allow the precedent. Could not allow anyone to prove them wrong. Better to burn the evidence than admit they had left millions to die unnecessarily. "Marcus, tell them we need more time. Tell them we found a treatment." "I don't think they care, Captain. They're saying this is about containment now, not rescue. They're saying we're compromised." Sarah looked at Lisa, at Wei, at young Zixith who had broadcast into the void hoping someone would hear. She thought about the 2.3 million people hiding in shelters across this world, waiting to die because the galaxy had declared them a lost cause. "Then we have 8 hours to prove them wrong," Sarah said. "Lisa, start developing that treatment. Wei, help her with whatever she needs. I'm going back to the ship. If the Council wants to burn this world, they're going to have to go through us first." "Captain," Zixith said quietly, "why do you do this? You do not know us. We are not your people. Why do you risk everything?" "1." Sarah looked at the young Zerathi. "Because you asked for help. And because humans don't let people die when we can save them. It's that simple." "That is not simple," Zixith said. "That is extraordinary." Sarah smiled. "Where we come from, they're the same thing." She headed back toward the Defiant Hope, her mind already working through the impossible problem. 8 hours to develop a treatment, prove it worked, and convince the Galactic Council not to commit genocide by fire. Just another day for the Deathworlders. Above the planet, the Council fleet held position, weapons charging, countdown ticking. They had their orders. In 6 hours, Zereth Prime would burn, unless the humans found a way to do the impossible. Again. The medical center in Shelter Complex 7 became a laboratory within 20 minutes of Sarah's departure. Lisa Park worked with controlled intensity, her hands steady as she drew blood samples from Zixith and 5 other young Zerathi who showed immunity to the plague. Wei Zhang had jury-rigged 3 of the shelter's broken medical machines, making them functional enough for basic analysis work. "Talk me through it," Sarah said over the comm from the Defiant Hope. She was back on the bridge, watching the Council fleet hold position above them. 20 warships, each one capable of reducing the planet's surface to molten glass. "The plague is a 2-stage killer," Lisa explained as she worked. "First, a hemorrhagic virus attacks the vascular system, causing internal bleeding. Then, while the immune system is overwhelmed fighting the virus, a bacterial infection moves in and finishes the job. Most species in the galaxy have very specialized immune responses. When they encounter something new, their bodies take days to adapt. By then, it's too late. But humans are different. Humans are different because Earth is a nightmare," Lisa said. "We evolved surrounded by diseases that mutated every season. Our immune systems had to learn to be fast, aggressive, and flexible. We can't afford the luxury of a slow, careful response. We hit infections hard and fast, even if it means sometimes we hit ourselves in the process. That's why humans get fevers so high they can cause brain damage," Wei added from where she was calibrating equipment. "Other species think we're insane. We basically set ourselves on fire to kill infections. The Zerathi immune system is somewhere in between," Lisa continued. "Adults have rigid immune responses, effective against known threats, but too slow against new ones. The juveniles, though, their immune systems are still developing. They're flexible enough to adapt. Like human children. That's why Zixith and the others survived." Sarah processed this information. "So your treatment needs to give adult Zerathi a human-style immune response?" "Sort of. I'm extracting antibodies from the immune juveniles and combining them with broad-spectrum antivirals and antibiotics. The antibodies will target the specific plague strains. The antivirals and antibiotics will knock down the overall infection load. That gives the patient's own immune system time to learn and adapt. It's not elegant, but it should work. Should? Medicine is never certain, Captain, but the theory is sound. I've seen similar treatments work on Earth. How long until you have something we can test? Lisa checked her equipment. 4 hours to synthesize the first batch. Then, we tested on volunteers. We don't have 4 hours, Sarah said grimly. The council fleet gave us 6 hours total. We're 2 hours in. That leaves 4 hours to develop, test, and prove the treatment works well enough to convince them not to sterilize the planet. Then we work faster. Lisa's voice was steel. On the Defiant Hope's bridge, Marcus was monitoring the council fleet's communications. Captain, they're broadcasting their justification on all frequencies. They're saying we're already infected, that we're a contamination risk. They're framing this as a mercy killing of 2.3 million people who aren't actually dead yet, James said bitterly. How merciful. Sarah pulled up the tactical display. The council fleet was arranged in a standard orbital bombardment formation. Professional, efficient, ready to commit genocide at the designated time. She wondered how many of those ships had crews that were uncomfortable with their orders. How many were just following protocol, trusting that their leaders had made the right decision. Maria, open a channel to the council fleet. All ships, all frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Sarah took a breath. Council fleet. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Defiant Hope. I'm sending you medical data from our doctor on the ground. We've identified the plague pathogen. It's treatable. We're developing a cure right now. We're asking you to stand down and give us time to prove it works. The response came from Fleet Commander Jacques, a Corthan whose species resembled armored crocodiles. His voice was deep and formal. Captain Chen, we have received your data. Our medical staff is reviewing it. However, our orders are clear. The risk of plague contamination spreading beyond this system is too great. The quarantine must be maintained. Is Nather Penson. Commander, if you destroy this planet, you're murdering 2.3 million people who could be saved. If we do not destroy this planet and the plague escapes, we could lose billions across the galaxy. The mathematics are absolute. The mathematics are wrong. Sarah's voice rose. Your medical teams were wrong. They tested only adults and assumed the plague was universally fatal. They didn't check the juveniles. They didn't think to look for natural immunity. They made a mistake, and now you're about to kill millions of people to cover it up. There was a long silence. Then Commander Jacques spoke more quietly. Captain Chen, even if your medical data is accurate, you cannot save 2.3 million people in 4 hours. You do not have the resources. You do not have the time. The most merciful thing is to end this quickly, rather than give them false hope. The most merciful thing is to try. Sarah slammed her hand on her chair. Commander, I'm human. My species comes from a death world that killed 99% of everything that ever lived there. We survived because we never accepted that something couldn't be done. We're stubborn, we're reckless, and we're too dumb to know when to quit. Give us a chance to be all those things one more time. Another silence. I will consult with my command staff. You have 4 hours remaining, Captain. If you cannot demonstrate a viable treatment and delivery method by then, we will proceed with planetary sterilization. Those are my final orders. Jacques, out. The channel closed. Sarah slumped in her chair. 4 hours. They had 4 hours to do the impossible. Captain, Marcus said, I'm reading new contacts, jumping into the system. Small vessels, but a lot of them. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, even a few pleasure yachts. What the hell? Sarah pulled up the scanner data. Dozens of ships were emerging from jump space, all converging on Zareth Prime. As they got closer, Maria started receiving their identification signals. "Captain, those ships, they're all from human colonies. Nova Hope, New Beijing, Armstrong Station, all of them. They're broadcasting that they're here to help." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "How did they even know?" "Your message," James said quietly. "The one you had Maria send to Earth, explaining what we were doing. It must have been intercepted by the human colonies on the way. They scrambled ships to join us. On the view screen, the ragtag human fleet approached the Council warships. They were nothing like the sleek military vessels. They were working ships, scarred and patched, held together by spare parts and stubbornness. But there were so many of them. 50 ships, 100. More jumping in every minute. Maria was laughing and crying at the same time. They're all broadcasting the same message. We're human. We're here to help. Try to stop us. Duma. The Council fleet did not know what to do. Their weapons were designed to fight military vessels, not civilian transports. They could destroy them easily, but that would mean firing on unarmed rescue ships. The political implications would be catastrophic. "Commander Jacques is hailing us," Maria reported. "Put him through." The Corthon commander appeared on screen. He looked tired. "Captain Chen, what is the meaning of this?" "Captain Chen. Captain Chen. I sent a message home," Sarah said simply. "Told them what we were doing. I guess, humans being humans. They decided to help. You cannot save 2.3 million people with 100 transport ships. Watch us." In Shelter Complex 7, Lisa finished synthesizing the first batch of treatment. It was a thick, reddish fluid that looked more like blood than medicine. In a way, it was blood antibodies extracted from immune Zerathi, concentrated and combined with human-designed antivirals. "I need volunteers," Lisa announced to the medical center. "This is an untested treatment. It might work, it might not. It could even make things worse. But if we don't try, everyone here dies anyway." An older Zerathi, his chitin dark with age and his breathing labored, raised one trembling limb. "I will try. I am dying already. What harm can it do?" His name was Kelksith. He had been a teacher before the plague, instructing young Zerathi in the old ways of navigation by the stars. Now he lay on a medical bed, his body shutting down one system at a time. Lisa injected him with the treatment, and then they waited. Minutes passed. Lisa monitored his vital signs, watching for any change. The other Zerathi in the medical center watched in silence, hoping for a miracle. Kelksith's breathing steadied. His body temperature, which had been dropping toward death, stabilized. His vital signs, weak and erratic, began to show a pattern again. After 30 minutes, he opened his eyes. "I feel different," he said. "The pain is less. The fog in my mind is clearing." Lisa scanned him again. The plague was still in his system, but the viral load was dropping. The bacterial infection was in retreat. His immune system, given the tools it needed, was fighting back. "It's working," Lisa whispered. Then louder. "It's working. Wei. We need to make more. A lot more." Wei was already moving. "How much do we need?" "Enough for 300 people in this shelter, then enough for the 2.3 million in all the shelters. So, basically, an impossible amount in 4 hours." "Then we better get started," Wei said. "I'll see if I can boost the synthesis rate. Maybe blow up a few more machines in the process." Sarah's voice came over the comm. "Lisa, the cavalry has arrived. We've got human ships from a dozen colonies offering assistance. What do you need?" Medical supplies, synthesis equipment, anyone with pharmaceutical production capability. And Captain, we're going to need a lot of blood donations from the immune Zerathi juveniles. Not enough to hurt them, but enough to produce antibodies for millions of people. I'll coordinate with the other ships. How fast can you train other medical personnel on your treatment protocol? I can write it up in 10 minutes. Any competent medic should be able to follow it. Good. Send it to Maria. She'll broadcast it to the fleet. Every ship with medical capability can start producing treatment. We'll turn this into a production line. And that was exactly what they did. The human ships descended to Zareth Prime, landing near shelters across the planet. Cargo bays were converted into mobile pharmaceutical labs. Engineers who had never studied medicine followed Lisa's protocols with desperate precision. The immune Zarethi juveniles, understanding what was needed, volunteered their blood in carefully measured amounts. Zixith became a coordinator, moving between shelters, helping the humans understand Zarethi physiology. Explaining the treatment to her frightened people, she moved with a confidence that had not been there before. She had spent 3 weeks watching her species die. Now, she was watching them come back to life. In Shelter Complex 7, Kelxith sat up for the first time in 2 weeks. Around him, other Zarethi who had received the treatment showed similar improvements. The treatment was not perfect. Some patients were too far gone. Their bodies too damaged to recover even with help. But the majority responded. They got better. They lived. Commander Jacques watched from orbit as the impossible happened in front of him. The human ships, those crazy, reckless Deathworlders, were actually pulling it off. His medical staff confirmed that the treatment worked. His scanners showed that the plague was being contained. The contamination risk was dropping by the hour as more Zirathi recovered and developed their own immunity. He called Sarah. Captain Chen, my medical staff has reviewed your treatment data and observed the results. They confirm that the plague is treatable and that the contamination risk is manageable. However, I must point out that you still have not solved the fundamental problem. You have treated perhaps 10,000 people. There are still 2.3 million spread across this planet. My orders require planetary sterilization if the plague cannot be completely eliminated. Sarah smiled. Commander, we're not going to eliminate the plague in 4 hours. But we don't need to. We just need to prove we can. Your fleet can maintain the quarantine. Keep the system locked down. But don't murder 2.3 million people who are already surviving. Give us time. Give us 1 week. If we can't show significant progress in 1 week, then you can reconsider your options. 1 week is a long time to maintain a fleet in hostile quarantine. 1 week is nothing compared to the guilt of committing genocide when you didn't have to. Jacques was silent for a long moment. Sarah could see him struggling with the decision. He was a military officer. He had his orders. But he was also a sentient being who understood what it meant to kill millions of innocents. Very well, Captain Chen. You have 1 week. But understand this. If the plague shows any sign of spreading beyond this system, if contamination is detected on any of your vessels, I will not hesitate. I will destroy every ship here, human and Zarethi alike. Do you understand? Understood, Commander. Do not thank me yet. You still have an impossible task ahead of you. Commander, we're human. Impossible is what we do. The channel closed. The Council fleet remained in orbit, weapons still hot, still ready. But they did not fire. The countdown stopped. Sarah slumped in her chair, exhausted. Around her, the bridge crew celebrated quietly. They had bought time. Now, they had to use it. Over the next week, the human fleet worked without rest. Ships that had been designed to carry cargo carried medicine instead. Pilots who had been hauling freight became ambulance drivers, ferrying treatment between shelters. Engineers became medical technicians. Traders became coordinators. Everyone did what needed to be done. The Zarethi, seeing these aliens from a death world risk everything to save them, began to understand what humans meant when they said, "We're all we've got." It was not about being alone. It was about being together, even when logic said to stay apart. Kelxith recovered enough to return to teaching. He gathered the young Zarethi and told them about the humans, about the species that had survived a planet that killed almost everything, and used that survival instinct not for conquest, but for compassion. They did not have to come, Kelxith said to his students. They had nothing to gain and everything to lose. But they came anyway, because we needed help. Remember this. Remember that in the darkest moment of our history, when our own galaxy abandoned us, the Deathworlders saved us. Young Zixith, who had broadcast into the void hoping for a miracle, sat among her fellow juveniles and smiled. She had learned something important. The universe was not empty of compassion. You just had to find the species crazy enough to act on it. On the defiant hope, Sarah received a transmission from Earth. It was from the Human Colonial Administration, the closest thing humanity had to a unified government. The message was brief. Captain Chen, you have put Earth in a difficult position with the Galactic Council. Your actions were against their explicit orders. However, you have also demonstrated what humanity stands for. We're sending additional ships with full medical facilities. If you're going to save 2.3 million people, you might as well do it properly. Try not to start an interstellar war. Signed, Administrator Chen. Sarah laughed. Administrator Chen was her mother. Of course, she would support the mission while officially disapproving of the method. That was the human way: push the rules until they bent, then act surprised when things worked out. Lisa came onto the bridge, looking exhausted but happy. Captain, we've treated 90,000 people so far. Mortality rate is down to 5%, and most of those are patients who were too far gone before treatment. We're going to save them. We're actually going to save them. How are the immune juveniles holding up? They're heroes, every one of them. Zixith has organized them into a volunteer corps. They go from shelter to shelter, donating blood, helping with care, teaching others what they know. That kid is 12 years old, and she's running a better relief operation than most governments. Sarah thought about Zixith, the young Zerathi who had refused to stop broadcasting even when all hope seemed lost. Make sure she gets a commendation. From Earth. I'll write it personally. She'd probably prefer a thank you and a chance to study xenomedicine. Then we'll give her both. The days passed. The treatment spread. The death toll stopped rising. The Zerathi began to cautiously believe that they might actually survive this nightmare. Commander Jacques, watching from his fleet, sent periodic reports to the Galactic Council. He detailed the human efforts, the treatment success rate, the declining contamination risk. The Council did not know how to respond. Admitting the humans were right meant admitting they had been wrong. Admitting they had been ready to commit genocide based on incomplete data. Vitrel, the crystalline chancellor who had ordered the quarantine, requested a direct communication with Sarah. When the channel opened, he did not speak for a long moment. Then, Captain Chen, you have done something remarkable. You have proven that sometimes illogic prevails where logic fails. My species has existed for 15 million years. We have seen empires rise and fall. But I have never seen anything quite like what you humans have done here. We just did what needed to be done, Sarah said. No. You did what no one else would do. There is a difference. The Council is reconsidering its protocols regarding quarantine procedures and disease response. Your method, while reckless, has shown effectiveness. We owe the Zerathi an apology. We owe you. I do not know what we owe you. You don't owe us anything, Sarah said. Just remember this the next time you're ready to write off an entire species. Maybe give them a chance first. Maybe ask the crazy humans for help. We're pretty good at the impossible. I will remember, Captain Chen. The galaxy will remember. When the transmission ended, Sarah looked at her crew. These 12 people who had decided to do something stupid and heroic and completely human. They had saved 2.3 million lives. They had changed how the galaxy thought about quarantines and diseases and what it meant to help. Not bad for a cargo ship with delusions of heroism. Outside, the sun set on Zerath Prime. In the shelters, the Zerathi watched the humans work and understood that they were not alone. In orbit, the Council fleet maintained their watch, but no longer as executioners. And in the deep dark between the stars, 6 other quarantine zones detected new signals. Human ships were coming. The Deathworlders were coming, because that's what they did. 3 days into the rescue operation, Earth itself responded, not just with medicine or supplies, but with a decision that would change everything. 18 purpose-built medical vessels launched from lunar orbit, each one designed for epidemic response and planetary relief operations. Behind them came supply ships, manufacturing vessels, and 3 massive hospital ships that could process millions of patients. Sarah watched them arrive on the tactical display, barely able to believe what she was seeing. The lead vessel was the UHMS Nightingale, a city-sized medical ship that Earth had built after the Brisbane fever epidemic. She had hoped for more supplies. She had not expected an entire fleet. Captain Chen. This is Fleet Medical Coordinator Hassan speaking from the Nightingale. We're here to take over primary operations. You and your crew have done something incredible. But you look like you need some rest. Sarah almost laughed. Rest. She had not slept in 3 days. None of her crew had. They were running on adrenaline, stimulants, and the stubborn human refusal to stop when there was work to be done. Coordinator Hassan, we appreciate the help, but we're not standing down. These people need every hand they can get. I'm not asking you to stand down, Captain. I'm asking you to let us share the load. You've proven the treatment works. Now, let us scale it up. That's what we're designed for. It made sense. Sarah's crew were heroes, but they were not equipped for a relief operation this massive. The Nightingale and her sister ships were. They had the personnel, the equipment, the infrastructure to treat millions. Letting them take the lead was the smart play. All right, Coordinator. We'll integrate with your operation. What do you need from us? End. Way. End. God passus. Your doctor's treatment protocol, and everything you've learned about working with the Zerathi. After that, honestly, you should sleep. You've earned it. Sarah wanted to argue. But she also knew Hassan was right. She was exhausted. Her crew was exhausted. They had done the impossible part, proving it could be done. Now it was time to let others finish what they had started. But the universe had other plans. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. Vitrell presided over a chamber full of angry, frightened representatives. The news from Zerath Prime had spread across the galaxy. The humans had broken quarantine. They had ignored council orders. And worst of all, they had succeeded. The political implications were catastrophic. Order. Vitrell's voice chimed across the chamber. We must address the human situation with rationality. Ambassador Thexlar of the Rovan Collective rose to speak. The Rovans were an insectoid species known for their rigid adherence to protocol. The humans have violated council law. They must be sanctioned. If we allow this precedent, every species will think they can ignore our authority. The humans saved 2.3 million lives, countered Ambassador Yilrin of the Sorath Union. The Sorath were amphibious beings who valued compassion above strict law. They did what we should have done. What we were too afraid to do. They risked galactic contamination. Thexlar's mandibles clicked in agitation. If the plague had spread, but it did not spread, Yilrin interrupted. Because the humans were right, and we were wrong. They saw a solution we missed. They had the courage to act when we chose to hide behind our protocols. The debate raged. Some species wanted the humans punished as an example. Others wanted them honored as heroes. A few wanted both, unable to reconcile the contradiction. The Galactic Council, an institution that had maintained order for 10,000 years, was fracturing over what to do about humanity. Vitrell watched it all with growing concern. The crystalline being had lived for 3,000 years, serving the council for most of them. He had seen disputes before, but nothing like this. The humans had exposed something uncomfortable. The council was not infallible. They made mistakes, and their mistakes cost lives. We must vote on sanctions, Thexlar demanded. The humans must face consequences. Trell prepared to call for a vote. Then a new transmission arrived from Zareth Prime. It was from the Zarathi themselves, broadcast on all council frequencies. The speaker was Kelksith, the old teacher who had been among the first to receive treatment. Galactic Council. This is Kelksith, of Zareth Prime. I speak on behalf of all Zarathi survivors. We understand you are debating what to do about the humans who saved us. We wish to make our position clear. Where? Wintrade. The humans violated your orders, yes. They broke your quarantine, yes. They risked contamination, yes. But they also gave us our lives back. When you decided we were already dead, they decided we were worth saving. When you chose safety over compassion, they chose courage over fear. If you punish them for this, you are telling the galaxy that the Council values its rules more than it values life itself. The chamber fell silent. Kelksith's words echoed in the minds of every representative. He was right, and everyone knew it. The Council had abandoned the Zarathi to death. The humans had given them life. There was no protocol that could make that look good. Furthermore, Kelksith continued, we wish to announce that Zareth formally requests to join the Human Alliance Network. If the species who saved us will have us, we choose to stand with them rather than with the Council that left us to die. The political bomb had been dropped. If the Zarathi aligned with humanity, other species might follow. The Council's authority would be questioned. Everything would change. Vetrell made a decision. There will be no vote on sanctions. The human actions at Zareth Prime are hereby classified as emergency medical intervention, authorized under Council Code 773. No punishment will be levied. This matter is closed. Thexlar's mandibles clicked furiously. Chancellor, you cannot simply, I can and I have. This session is adjourned. The chamber erupted in chaos, but Vetrell was already leaving. He had been in power long enough to know when to cut losses. The humans had won. Fighting them now would only weaken the Council further. Better to accept the situation and try to maintain some dignity. But the situation was not over. As the Earth fleet established operations around Zareth Prime, word spread to 6 other quarantine zones scattered across the galaxy. 6 other dying worlds where species had been written off as unsavable. And now, seeing what had happened at Zareth Prime, those dying species began broadcasting their own desperate calls for help. On Earth, the Colonial Administration convened an emergency meeting. Administrator Chen Sarah's mother stood before the assembled representatives of humanity's colonies and settlements. She was an older woman, gray-haired but sharp-eyed, who had spent 40 years in diplomatic service. She had not expected her daughter's unauthorized rescue mission to turn into a galactic crisis. The question before us is simple, Administrator Chen said. 6 other species are dying in quarantine zones. They're calling for help. Do we respond? The debate was immediate and heated. Some argued that humanity could not save everyone, that they did not have the resources, that they would overextend themselves and accomplish nothing. Others argued that they could not ignore the calls for help, not after what they had just proven at Zareth Prime. We're not a wealthy species, pointed out Representative Torres from Nova Hope Colony. We've only been in space for 50 years. We're still building our own infrastructure. If we commit to saving 6 more species, we risk our own stability. We also risk our humanity, countered Representative Kim from New Beijing. Literally, what makes us human is that we help when we can. If we start calculating whether it's economically feasible to save lives, we become something else, something worse. Administrator Chen listened to both sides. She thought about her daughter, racing into a quarantine zone against all reason. That was the human way, acting first, worrying about consequences later. It had gotten them into trouble countless times throughout history. It had also gotten them through situations that should have killed them. How many ships can we mobilize? She asked her military liaison. We have 23 medical vessels available, including the Nightingale currently at Zareth Prime. We have 47 cargo ships that could be converted for medical supply runs, and if we put out a call for volunteers, we could probably get another 100 civilian vessels willing to help. Equipment? Supplies? We have enough medical supplies for 3 large-scale operations, maybe 4 if we stretch. For 6, we would need to begin emergency production. That would strain our industrial capacity. Administrator Chen nodded. The math was not good. They could help some of the quarantine zones, but not all. Not without risking their own civilization's stability. The logical choice was to pick and choose carefully, help where they could make the most difference, and accept that they could not save everyone. But she thought about her daughter again, about what Sarah would say if presented with these calculations. Sarah would say the math did not matter, that you helped who you could, and you did not stop until you physically could not help anymore. Send ships to all 6 quarantine zones, Administrator Chen ordered. Medical assessment teams first. They'll evaluate each situation and report back on what's needed. Then we'll figure out how to make it work. Administrator. If we overextend, then we overextend. That's what humans do. We push beyond what's reasonable and somehow make it work. If we fail, at least we'll fail trying. Send the ships. The order went out across human space. Within hours, ships began moving toward the 6 quarantine zones. They were not all military vessels. Many were civilian transports, whose captains volunteered to help. Some were private yachts converted into mobile medical labs. One was a mining ship whose crew had voted unanimously to abandon their current job and go save aliens they had never met. The galaxy watched in confusion and wonder. What kind of species did this? What kind of beings threw away profit and safety to help strangers across the galaxy? The answer, apparently, was Deathworlders, the crazy ones from the Nightmare Planet who did not understand that some things were impossible. Commander Jax, still maintaining quarantine around Zareth Prime, received reports of the human mobilization. He contacted Sarah. Captain Chen, what is your species doing? Responding to distress calls. Same thing we did here. There are 6 quarantine zones. Each one is as dangerous as this one was. Your species cannot save them all. Probably not, Sarah agreed. But we're going to try anyway. That's what we do. That is insane. Yeah, we get that a lot. Jacques was silent for a moment. Then, Captain, I have been authorized to offer Corthan medical support for the human operations. My fleet has extensive medical facilities. If you will have us, we wish to help. Sarah was surprised. Commander, I thought you were supposed to be containing us. I was, but I have been watching your species for days now. You work without rest. You risk everything for beings you do not know. You do not do this for profit or power. You do it because you believe it is right. That is inspiring. It makes one reconsider what is important. So, will you have our help? We'll have anyone's help who's willing to give it. Other species began to respond. Not the council itself, which was still paralyzed by politics, but individual species, individual ships, individual commanders who saw what the humans were doing and wanted to be part of it. The Soreth sent 3 hospital ships. The Miraki, a species known for their engineering skills, sent construction vessels to help rebuild infrastructure. Even a few Rovan ships showed up, despite their government's opposition, their crews claiming they were on independent humanitarian missions. What started as one cargo ship breaking quarantine had become a movement. The humans had shown that the impossible was just difficult. That compassion was stronger than fear, and that sometimes the logical choice was wrong and the crazy choice was right. In Shelter Complex 7, Zixith watched the human medical teams work alongside Soreth doctors and Corthan medics and Miraki engineers. Species that had never worked together. united by a common purpose. She approached Captain Chen, who was supervising the distribution of medical supplies. "Captain, why did you really come?" Zixith asked. "The truth, not the noble answer. Why did humans risk everything?" Sarah looked at the young Zerathi. She could have given the diplomatic answer, the inspiring answer. Instead, she told the truth. "Because we know what it's like to be alone and scared. Earth was not a kind mother, Zixith. She tried to kill us in 1,000 different ways. Diseases, predators, natural disasters. We faced them all. The only reason we survived was because we refused to let each other die. We learned that we're stronger together than alone. That survival means helping the weak, protecting the vulnerable, and never giving up on each other. When we heard your call for help, we didn't see aliens. We saw people who needed us. And humans don't leave people to die. It's that simple and that complicated." Zixith's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "You are teaching the galaxy something important. What's that?" "That strength is not just about weapons or technology. It is about what you choose to do when no one is forcing you. The Council had the power to save us, but they chose not to. Humans had no obligation to save us, but you chose to anyway. That is real strength." Sarah smiled. "I'm going to put that in my report. The politicians back home will love it. Will your people be angry about the cost? About the resources spent to save strangers? Some will be, but most will understand. Humans have a saying, 'We're all we've got.' Most species think it means we're isolated. It doesn't. It means when things get dark, we have each other. And now?" Sarah gestured at the shelter full of recovering Zerathi and the mixed species medical teams working together. "You're part of that. We. All of you. The Sorith, the Korthon, the Meraki. Everyone here. We're all we've got, so we take care of each other." Zixith made a sound that might have been Zerathi laughter. "Captain Chen, I think you have started something bigger than you realize." "I hope so. The galaxy needs something bigger. It's been playing it safe for too long." News reached them that the human assessment teams had reported from the 6 quarantine zones. 4 of them had situations similar to Zereth Prime, treatable diseases that the Council had written off as hopeless. 2 were more complicated, requiring solutions that had not been developed yet. But all 6 were salvageable. All 6 could be saved. The logistics would be brutal. The cost would be enormous. The risk would be significant. And humanity was going to do it anyway, because that was what Deathworlders did. Administrator Chen received the assessment reports and immediately authorized full-scale operations for all 6 zones. She also put out a galaxy-wide call for assistance. Any species that wanted to help was welcome. Any ship that could carry supplies was needed. Any doctor, engineer, or volunteer who wanted to be part of something important could join. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of ships from dozens of species began moving toward the quarantine zones. The Galactic Council tried to maintain control, issuing protocols and guidelines, but no one was listening anymore. The rules had changed. The humans had proven that compassion was more important than protocol, and the galaxy was following their lead. Vitrell watched it all from his council chamber and realized that everything had changed. The Galactic Council was no longer the ultimate authority. They were now just one voice among many, and that voice had been proven wrong at a critical moment. It would take decades, maybe centuries, to rebuild their credibility, but maybe that was not a bad thing. Maybe the galaxy needed to be shaken up. Maybe they had become too comfortable, too cautious, too willing to accept that some problems were unsolvable. The humans, with their death world instincts and their stubborn refusal to accept the impossible, were reminding everyone what it meant to try. On the Defiant Hope, Sarah's crew finally allowed themselves to rest. The Earth fleet had taken over operations at Zereth Prime. The Zerathi survivors were recovering. The treatment was working. They had done what they set out to do, and more. Much more. James sat in the mess hall, drinking coffee that was more stimulant than beverage. "Captain, we just started an interstellar relief movement by accident." "Not by accident," Sarah corrected. "By necessity. Someone had to do it. You realize Earth is going to be famous for this. Humans are going to be known as the species that saves everyone. Could be worse reputations to have." Maria laughed from across the table. "Better than being known as the dangerous barbarians from the death world. We're still that too," Wei pointed out. "We just happen to be dangerous barbarians who care about people." Marcus raised his coffee cup. "To the defiant Hope and her insane crew. May we always be too stupid to know when something is impossible." They drank to that. 12 people who had changed the galaxy by refusing to look away from suffering. 12 humans who had proven that sometimes the death world species were the most alive. Outside, the stars shone bright and clear. And across the galaxy, in 6 dying systems, help was on the way. The Death Worlders were coming, and they were bringing hope with them. 6 months later, the last quarantine zone was declared plague-free. The Salvix system, which had lost 90% of its population before the humans arrived, now had 800,000 survivors rebuilding their civilization. Across the 7 systems that had been abandoned by the galaxy, over 12 million people lived who should have been dead. The numbers were staggering. The cost had been enormous. Earth's economy had been strained to its limit. 3 human medical ships had been lost to equipment failures. 47 personnel had died from various complications. But 12 million people were alive. 12 million voices that could speak again. 12 million futures that had been saved. The Galactic Council formally convened to address what they were calling the human intervention. Vitrell presided, but his authority was diminished. Everyone knew it. The council chambers were packed with representatives, many of whom had participated in the relief efforts and had no patience for political maneuvering. "We are here to discuss the status of the 7 rescued systems," Vitrell announced, "and to address the question of future quarantine protocols. The humans have demonstrated that our previous policies were insufficient." That was the most diplomatic way possible to say completely wrong and potentially genocidal. But the council took what they could get. Ambassador Thexlar of the Rovan Collective stood. He had opposed the human intervention from the beginning, but even he could not argue with success. The council must acknowledge that the humans acted outside our authority. However, their actions produced positive results. "We propose a new framework. The Humanitarian Intervention Protocol, which would allow for medical rescue attempts in quarantine zones under specific conditions." It was a compromise. The council would maintain authority, but they would allow exceptions. It was progress, even if it was grudging progress. Then Kelksith stood. The old Zarathi teacher had become the unofficial spokesperson for the rescued species. His voice was steady, his words carefully chosen. "The council speaks of protocols and authority. We, the survivors, speak of a different matter. We speak of debt. 7 species owe their existence to human intervention. The humans have asked for nothing in return. No territory, no resources, no political concessions. They saved us because they believed it was right. The galaxy must recognize this debt and honor it." "What do you propose?" Vitrell asked. The 7 rescued species formally propose the creation of the Alliance of Rescued Worlds. "We will work together to support human colonies, share our resources and technology, and stand with humanity in galactic affairs. We do this not because we are required to, but because it is right. The humans taught us that compassion has value. We intend to practice what we learned." The proposal rippled through the chamber. 7 species, forming a bloc aligned with humanity. It would shift the entire political balance of the galaxy. Some representatives looked horrified. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked pleased. The Soreth Union immediately announced their support. The Soreth stand with the Alliance of Rescued Worlds. The humans showed us what true compassion looks like. We will not forget. The Korthon hegemony followed. Commander Jacques himself appeared via hologram. The Korthon witnessed human courage firsthand. We have decided that strength is not just about military might. It is about the will to act when others will not. The Korthans support the Alliance and request formal cooperation agreements with Earth. One by one, species that had participated in the rescue efforts announced their support. Not all of them. The Rovan Collective abstained. Several other conservative species voted against it. But the momentum was clear. Humanity had allies now. Real allies. Bound not by treaty, but by genuine respect and gratitude. Vitrell watched his carefully ordered galaxy shift and change. As a being who had lived for 3,000 years, he recognized a historical turning point when he saw one. The Council acknowledges the Alliance of Rescued Worlds. We welcome this development and look forward to working together toward common goals. It was the best he could do. Maintain dignity while accepting defeat. After the session, Vitrell requested a private communication with Administrator Chen on Earth. When the connection was established, the crystalline chancellor studied the human woman carefully. She looked older than her years, worn down by 6 months of crisis management and impossible logistics. But her eyes were sharp, and her spine was straight. Administrator Chen, I wish to speak plainly, off the record. I appreciate plain speaking, Chancellor. Your species has changed the galaxy in 6 months. What took us millennia to build, you have shifted in half a year. You have created a new power block, challenged our authority, and demonstrated that our methods were flawed. You have done this while claiming no territory, seeking no power, and asking for nothing in return. I do not understand you. My species has studied logic and rationality for 15 million years. And you, humans, make no sense. Administrator Chen smiled. Chancellor, my daughter once told me something when she was young. She said, Mom, sometimes the smart thing is the wrong thing. I asked her what she meant. She said the smart thing is to stay safe. But if everyone stays safe, no one helps the people who need it. So sometimes you have to be dumb enough to do the right thing. She was 10 years old. And she understood something that your 15-million-year-old species apparently missed. Compassion is not logical. It is something better. Vitrell was silent for a long moment. Then, your species frightens me, Administrator. Not because you are violent, though you can be. Not because you are aggressive, though you are. You frighten me because you are unpredictable. You do things that make no logical sense and somehow succeed. You should have failed at Zareth Prime. The mathematics said it was impossible. You did it anyway. Tonight. We're good at impossible, Chancellor. We had to be. Our planet didn't give us a choice. I believe your daughter is being considered for the Galactic Medal of Humanitarian Service. The highest honor the Council can bestow. She will be the first human to receive it. She won't care about the medal. She'll care that those 12 million people are alive. I know. That is precisely why she deserves it. Vitrell paused. Administrator, I have a question. What will your species do now? You have allies. You have influence. You have demonstrated capabilities that exceed your years in space. What are your intentions? Same as always. Survive. Help others survive. Build something good. We're not interested in conquest or domination. Chancellor, we just want to live in a galaxy where people help each other instead of abandoning each other. If that makes us dangerous, then I guess we're dangerous. It does make you dangerous. But perhaps dangerous in a way the galaxy needs. The transmission ended. Administrator Chen sat back in her chair and allowed herself a moment of exhaustion. 6 months. 6 impossible months. Her daughter's crazy decision to break quarantine had somehow turned into a galactic movement. 12 million people saved. 7 species allied. The entire political structure of the galaxy shifted, and all because one cargo ship captain decided that the math did not matter when people were dying. On Zareth Prime, the rebuilding continued. The dead cities were slowly coming back to life. Power was restored. Water systems were repaired. Schools reopened. Young Zarethi played in streets that had been silent graveyards just 6 months ago. It was not perfect. The scars remained. But life continued. Zixith, now 13 in Zarethi years, had become something of a celebrity. The young Zarethi, who had broadcast the distress signal that changed everything. She received offers from a dozen universities to study xenomedicine. She accepted one from Earth, wanting to learn from the species that had saved her people. Before she left for Earth, she visited the memorial that had been built near Shelter Complex 7. It was a simple structure, made of native stone, inscribed with the names of all who had died in the plague, billions of names. But at the top, a different inscription. They were not forgotten. The humans remembered. Kelksith found her there. The old teacher walked slowly now, his body still recovering from how close to death he had been. But he was alive. That was more than anyone had dared hope for. "You leave tomorrow," Kelksith said. "Yes. Earth has accepted me into their medical program. I will study human medicine and bring that knowledge back to help rebuild our world. You will do great things, Zixith. You already have. Your distress signal saved our species. It was just broadcasting into the void, hoping someone cared enough to listen. And someone did. That is the lesson, young one. The void is not empty if you dare to call into it. The humans heard you, because they were listening. Now you must learn their ways, understand their medicine, and teach our people what you learn. That is how we honor the debt we owe them." Zixith touched the memorial stone. "Teacher, do you think it will happen again? Another plague? Another disaster? Will species abandon each other again? When it does?" Kelksith considered the question carefully. "Perhaps. Fear makes people do terrible things, and the galaxy is full of fear. But now, there is also hope. The humans have shown us what is possible when compassion overcomes fear. Some will learn from this, some will not. But the lesson has been taught. That is something. It is not enough. No. But it is a beginning, and beginnings matter." On the Defiant Hope, Captain Sarah Chen prepared for departure. The old cargo ship had been in dock for the past month, undergoing repairs and upgrades. The Earth government had offered to replace her with a newer vessel, but Sarah had declined. The Defiant Hope had earned her name. She deserved to keep flying. The crew gathered in the mess hall for their departure briefing. All 12 of them, still together, still ready for whatever came next. They had been offered positions on better ships, promotions, desk jobs with honors and comfortable salaries. Every one of them had declined. They were a crew. They stayed together. "All right, people," Sarah said, pulling up the mission brief. "We've got a cargo run to the frontier colonies. Standard supplies. Nothing exciting. Then we're supposed to swing by Nova Hope for crew rotation. After that, we have a month of scheduled leave. Earth wants us to take a break. Are we going to take that break?" Maria asked with a grin. "Probably not," Sarah admitted. "But we'll pretend we are when we file the reports." James laughed. "Captain, we broke galactic law, started an interstellar alliance movement, and probably shortened the Chancellor's lifespan by a few centuries. I think we've earned a reputation for not following the plan, which is exactly why they want us on boring cargo runs for a while. Let things cool down. Let the politicians figure out what to do with us. And if another distress signal comes through?" Wei asked quietly. Sarah looked at her crew. Her impossible, stubborn, crazy crew who had followed her into a quarantine zone and helped save 12 million lives. "Then we do what we always do. We respond. We help. We prove that the impossible is just difficult. That's what humans do. That's what Deathworlders do." Marcus raised his coffee cup. To the Defiant Hope and her insane crew. May we always be where we're needed, even when we're not wanted. They drank to that. A toast to doing the right thing, regardless of rules or protocol or common sense. A toast to being human, in all its reckless, compassionate glory. The Defiant Hope launched from Zareth Prime a day later. As they cleared orbit, Sarah looked back at the planet that had changed everything. It was beautiful now, healing, and alive. Millions of Zarathi down there owed their lives to the decision of one crew to do something stupid and heroic. "Captain," Maria said from communications, "I'm picking up a transmission. It's from the Salvix system. They're having problems with their treatment supplies. Nothing critical, but they're asking if any ships in the area can assist." Sarah looked at the navigation plot. The Salvix system was 3 days out of their way. Their cargo run had a schedule. Earth had told them to stay out of trouble. The logical thing was to forward the request to someone else and stick to their mission. "James, plot a course to Salvix. Best speed." "Aye, Captain. I'll let Earth know we're deviating from our schedule. Tell them we heard a distress call. They'll understand." The Defiant Hope changed course, heading toward the Salvix system and away from their boring cargo run. Because that was what they did. That was what humans did. When someone called for help, they answered. Logic be damned. Schedules be damned. The safe thing, the smart thing, the reasonable thing, all of it could wait. People needed help, and the Deathworlders were coming. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council updated humanity's file once again. Beside their species name, a new note was added. Classification: Deathworlder. Unpredictable. Irrational. Impossibly stubborn. Do not underestimate their capacity for compassion. It is more dangerous than their capacity for violence. If distress signal is transmitted, assume human response is imminent. Prepare accordingly. Note: attempting to stop them is generally futile. Recommend cooperation instead. Vitrell read the updated file and made that sound like breaking glass. That was the crystalline equivalent of a sigh. The humans were going to give him fits for the rest of his very long life. They were going to break rules, ignore protocols, and do impossible things on a regular basis. They were going to save people who should not be saved, and turn impossible situations into unlikely victories. And somehow, the galaxy was better for it. On Earth, Administrator Chen received reports of her daughter's latest deviation from orders. The Defiant Hope had responded to a minor distress call and was once again doing something heroic when she was supposed to be on a boring cargo run. Administrator Chen smiled and filed the report with a note. Approved. Captain Chen is acting in accordance with human values and merchant marine protocols. No disciplinary action required. Then, she opened her personal messages and sent one to her daughter. Proud of you. Try not to start another galactic incident for at least a month. Love, Mom. Sarah received the message 3 days later, in orbit around Salvix, having just delivered emergency medical supplies to a grateful population. She smiled and sent back. No promises. Love you too. The Defiant Hope departed Salvix system and resumed course to the frontier colonies. Behind them, grateful Salvix broadcast their thanks across all frequencies. Ahead of them, the frontier waited with whatever challenges it would bring. And somewhere in between, in the vast dark between stars, more distress signals waited to be heard. The galaxy had learned something important in the past 6 months. It had learned that humans did not give up. They did not accept that things were impossible. They did not calculate whether saving lives was economically feasible before deciding to act. They just acted, and somehow made it work through sheer stubborn determination and reckless compassion. Other species were starting to learn from this. The Sorith had established their own rapid response medical teams, modeled on human practices. The Korthan were rewriting their military protocols to include humanitarian operations. Even the conservative Rovan Collective was quietly reforming their quarantine procedures to allow for rescue attempts. The humans had changed the galaxy not through conquest or force, but through example. Young Zixith arrived on Earth 2 weeks later. She stood in the arrivals terminal of Geneva Spaceport, surrounded by aliens and humans going about their busy lives. This was the homeworld of the species that had saved her people. The death world that bred deathworlders. She had expected something harsh and terrifying. Instead, she found a beautiful blue-green planet with friendly people who welcomed her warmly. She found a species that had survived impossible odds not by becoming monsters, but by becoming people who refused to let each other fail. She found the place that had taught Sarah Chen that sometimes the smart thing is the wrong thing, and the right thing is worth dying for. On her first day at Earth Medical University, Zixith's instructor asked the class a question. What is the most important quality in a medical professional? Other students answered. Knowledge, skill, dedication, precision. All good answers. All correct in their way. When the instructor called on Zixith, she thought about broadcasting into the void, about the defiant hope breaking through a quarantine to reach her, about Captain Chen saying, "We're all we've got," and meaning it as a promise rather than a curse. Compassion, Zixith said. The will to act when others will not. The refusal to accept that some people cannot be saved. That is what humans taught us. That is what medicine should be. The instructor, an older human woman with gray hair and kind eyes, smiled. You've learned the most important lesson already. Now we just have to teach you the technical skills to back it up. Welcome to Earth, Zixith. I think you're going to do well here. And somewhere in space, the defiant hope continued on her journey, her crew ready for whatever came next. They were just one ship. Just 12 people. But they had proven that 12 people could change the galaxy if they were stubborn enough to try. The galaxy had called them Deathworlders, had meant it as a warning. But the rescued worlds had given them a different name. Spoken with gratitude and awe. They called them Hope, and hope, as it turned out, was the most dangerous thing of all. Because hope made people believe that things could be better, that the impossible was just difficult, that compassion was stronger than fear. And once people believed that, there was no telling what they might accomplish. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what the Deathworlders had intended. The end.
The stars were burning. Commander Sarah Chen watched the screens in the deep space monitoring station hidden beneath the lunar surface. Each bright flash on her display meant another world had died. Another billion lives snuffed out in the endless war that had consumed the galaxy for 30 years. Contact bearing 074, called out Lieutenant Martinez from his station. Hegemony Battle Group, 12 ships. They're heading for the Centauri system. Sarah nodded. She had been tracking this particular fleet for 3 days. The aliens, in their massive ships, had no idea that humans were watching every move they made. Earth had stayed hidden in the shadows while the galaxy tore itself apart. The war had started over something humans could barely understand. Two vast alien empires, the Hegemony Alliance and the Void Collective, had been fighting over resources and territory for decades. What began as border disputes had grown into total war. Entire star systems had been wiped out. Planets cracked, open like eggs. Species driven to extinction. And through it all, Earth had watched and learned. Dr. James Park entered the command center carrying a steaming cup of coffee. The chief scientist looked tired. He had been working 8-hour days. For the past month, analyzing the latest alien technology samples their hidden probes had collected from battlefields. Any new developments? He asked, settling into the chair next to Sarah. The usual, she replied, pointing to the main display. The void ships are massing near Volf 359. The hegemony is pulling back from the outer rim. Both sides are getting desperate. James studied the tactical display. Red dots marked hegemony positions. Blue showed the Void Collective. The map of local space looked like a disease spreading through healthy tissue. Our analysis teams finished looking at that wreckage from the Vega battle, James said. The energy weapons are more advanced than we thought. They can punch through 6 meters of titanium steel like it was paper. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The aliens' casual destruction of entire worlds made humanity's nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. Yet Earth's leaders had made the right choice 30 years ago when First Contact had revealed the galactic war. Stay hidden. Stay neutral. Stay alive. The policy had worked. Both alien factions had dismissed Earth as another primitive world. Their scans showed a planet with basic technology, chemical rockets, and radio signals. Nothing worth conquering. Nothing that could threaten them. They had no idea how wrong they were in the decades since the war began. Humanity had been busy. Deep space monitoring stations tracked every alien ship movement. Hidden facilities in the asteroid belt reverse-engineered captured technology. Earth's brightest minds worked in secret to understand and improve upon alien science. "Sir," Martinez called out, "we're getting reports from Station Gamma, large energy signatures near Jupiter." Sarah's blood turned cold. Station Gamma monitored the outer solar system. Nothing alien was supposed to come that close to Earth. "Put it on screen," she ordered. The main display shifted to show a real-time feed from Jupiter space. For a moment, Sarah saw nothing but the familiar sight of the gas giant and its moons. Then the space near Ao began to shimmer. "Hyperspace emergence," James whispered. A massive ship appeared as if materializing from nothing. The vessel was over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapon arrays and armor plating. Sarah recognized the design immediately from her databases. "Hegemony Dreadnought," she said. "What's it doing here?" Her question was answered seconds later when more ships dropped out of hyperspace. These were smaller, angular vessels painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light. Void Collective Hunters. "They're fighting," Martinez reported, his voice tight with tension. "The Hegemony ship is damaged. Hull breaches on multiple decks. The Void ships are closing in." Sarah watched in horror as the battle unfolded in Earth's backyard. Beams of pure energy lanced between the ships. The Hegemony Dreadnought fired back with weapons that turned space itself into a weapon. One of the Void Hunters simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant, but the big ship was dying. Atmosphere vented from dozens of holes in its hull. Its engines flickered and went dark. The remaining Void ships circled like sharks, preparing to finish their prey. "Get me a secure line to Earth Command," Sarah ordered. "Priority Alpha." Within minutes, she was connected to Admiral Harrison, the head of Earth's secret defense forces. The old soldier listened grimly as Sarah reported the battle taking place near Jupiter. "How close are they to our installations?" he asked. "Too close," Sarah replied. "If they detect our monitoring stations, our cover is blown. And sir, there's something else." Long-range scans showed debris heading toward the inner system. Some of it is on course for Europa. Europa, the mining colony that housed 300 civilian workers and their families. The first permanent human settlement beyond Mars. If alien debris struck the colony, evacuate Europa immediately, Admiral Harrison ordered. Full emergency protocols. And Sarah, prepare the fleet. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. The fleet. For 30 years, humanity had been building ships in secret. Vessels designed with everything they had learned from watching the aliens fight. The fleet was supposed to be Earth's last line of defense if the war ever came to the solar system. It looked like that day had arrived. "Understood, sir," she said. The connection ended, and Sarah turned back to her screens. The battle near Jupiter was ending. The Hegemony Dreadnought was dead in space, its hull split open like a broken toy. The Void ships were already moving away, heading back toward their own territory, but the damage was done. Pieces of destroyed alien ships were scattered throughout the outer solar system. Some chunks of debris were the size of city blocks, and they were all moving toward the inner planets at tremendous speed. "Sir," Martinez called out, "Europa colony is not responding to evacuation orders. Their communications array was damaged in yesterday's solar storm. They don't know what's coming." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. 300 innocent people. Miners and engineers and their families. They had come to Europa to build humanity's future among the stars. Now they were about to become the first human casualties of the galactic war. Time to impact? She asked. 14 hours, Martinez replied. 14 hours to save 300 lives. 14 hours before Earth's neutrality would be shattered. Forever. Sarah opened a new communication channel. This one encrypted with quantum codes that no alien technology could break. This is Deep Watch Command to all stations, she announced. Operation Silver Shield is now active. All units prepare for immediate deployment. Across the solar system, hidden facilities came alive. On the far side of the moon, massive hangar doors opened for the first time in 20 years. In the asteroid belt, ships that had been disguised as mining equipment shed their camouflage. Near Pluto, a battle station that officially did not exist began charging its weapons. Humanity had spent 3 decades preparing for this moment. They had watched the galaxy burn while building their own defenses. They had learned from every alien battle, studied every weapon, analyzed every tactic. The aliens thought Earth was weak and primitive. They thought humans were not worth their attention. They were about to discover how wrong they had been. Dr. Park stood beside Sarah as reports flooded in from across the solar system. Ships were launching. Crews that had trained for years in secret or taken their positions. The hidden defense network that protected Earth was coming online. Do you think we're ready? He asked quietly. Sarah watched the tactical display update as human ships began moving toward the outer system. Each vessel represented years of work and sacrifice. They carried the hopes and fears of an entire world. We have to be, she said. Because ready or not, the war just came to us. In the depths of space, alien debris continued its deadly journey toward Europa. But now it was being tracked by sensors the aliens did not know existed. Human ships were moving to intercept. And on Earth, leaders who had spent decades planning for this day were giving orders that would change the course of galactic history. The age of human neutrality was ending. What came next would determine whether humanity joined the ranks of extinct species or took its place among the stars as something the galaxy had never seen before. The Watchers were about to become warriors. The first human ship to reveal itself was the Terra's shield. Captain Maria Santos watched the massive piece of alien debris spinning toward Europa through her ship's main viewer. The chunk of metal and exotic materials was the size of a football stadium and moving at 30,000 kilometers per hour. If it hit the mining colony, 300 people would die in an instant. Distance to target? She asked her weapons officer. 50,000 kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Commander Zhang replied. Impact with Europa in 47 minutes. Maria had trained for this moment for 15 years. Her ship was one of 20 vessels in humanity's secret defense fleet. Built in hidden shipyards throughout the solar system, the Terra's shield looked nothing like the alien warships that had been fighting across the galaxy. Where alien ships were massive and heavily armored, human vessels were sleek and fast. The Terra's shield was only 400 meters long, but it packed weapons and defenses that had taken decades to develop. Every system had been designed after careful study of alien technology and tactics. Target locked, Zhang announced. Particle beam ready. Fire, Maria ordered. A beam of charged particles lanced out from the Terra's shield. The energy struck the debris and turned it into glowing vapor in seconds. The threat to Europa was gone, but Maria knew this was only the beginning. Captain, her communications officer called out. We're getting a priority signal from Earth Command. Admiral Harrison wants to speak with you directly. The main viewer switched to show the weathered face of Admiral Harrison. Behind him, Maria could see the busy command center deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Good work, Captain Santos, the Admiral said. But we have a bigger problem. Long-range sensors are picking up more alien ships heading our way, both hegemony and void forces. They detected the energy signature from that battle near Jupiter. Maria felt her stomach drop. For 30 years, humanity had stayed hidden by avoiding any actions that might reveal their presence. But saving Europa had required using their weapons. Now the aliens knew something was in the Sol system. How long do we have? She asked. 6 hours, Harrison replied. Maybe less. The lead ships are moving fast. They want to investigate what happened to their people. Through her ship's sensors, Maria could detect the approaching alien vessels. 3 hegemony cruisers and 2 void destroyers. Each ship was larger and more heavily armed than anything in the human fleet. Under normal circumstances, 5 alien warships could destroy every human installation in the solar system without breaking a sweat, but these were not normal circumstances. Humanity had not been idle during the decades of galactic war. Admiral, Maria said, requesting permission to activate the full defense grid. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Maria knew what he was thinking. Once they revealed Earth's true capabilities, there would be no going back. The galaxy would know that humans were not the primitive species they appeared to be. Permission granted, Harrison said finally. All ships, all stations, Code 7 authorization. Full defensive posture. Across the solar system, humanity's hidden defenses came alive. Near Mars, weapon platforms that had been disguised as asteroids powered up their particle cannons. In the belt between Mars and Jupiter, automated defense drones emerged from hidden storage bays. Around Earth itself, orbital battle stations that had been invisible to alien sensors suddenly appeared as their stealth systems shut down, but the most impressive sight was the fleet itself. 20 human warships emerged from their hiding places. Throughout the solar system, they moved with perfect coordination, their quantum communication systems, allowing them to act as a single unit. Maria watched the tactical display as the human ships took their positions. Each vessel was painted in the deep blue of Earth's oceans, with the white and green symbol of the United Nations on their hulls. They looked small compared to the approaching alien forces, but Maria knew appearances could be deceiving. Unknown vessels, came a transmission on standard galactic frequencies. This is War Commander Thex of the Hegemony Alliance. You are in violation of neutral space. Identify yourselves immediately. Maria looked to Admiral Harrison for guidance. The Admiral nodded. This is Captain Maria Santos of the Earth Defense Force, she replied. You are in violation of Terran space. Your weapons fire damaged our civilian installations and threatened the lives of our people. There was a long pause. When the alien commander spoke again, his voice carried surprise and confusion. Earth Defense Force? Our records show that Earth is a primitive world. Your people have barely achieved spaceflight. Your records are incomplete, Maria said calmly. We demand an explanation for the attack on our territory. The alien ships had slowed as they approached the inner solar system. Maria could see them on her sensors, massive vessels bristling with weapons. The lead hegemony cruiser was over a kilometer long and carried enough firepower to level a city, but the aliens were hesitating. They had expected to find wreckage and perhaps some primitive space stations. Instead, they faced an organized fleet that spoke with confidence and authority. There's been no attack on your people, War Commander Thex replied. We were pursuing enemy forces. Any damage to your installations was accidental. 300 of our people died when your debris hit Europa, Maria said, her voice hard. That makes it an attack. She was lying, of course. The evacuation had been successful. Every person on Europa had made it to the emergency shelters before the debris struck. But the aliens did not need to know that from the void ships came a different voice, harsh and mechanical. Hegemony scum, the void commander said. Your carelessness has involved another species in our conflict. The humans have every right to demand compensation. Stay out of this, void filth, Dex snapped back. This is between us and the humans. Maria realized that the aliens were more concerned about each other than about the human ships. Even now, facing an unknown force, their hatred for each other dominated their thinking. Both of you will explain your presence in our system, she said firmly. And both of you will compensate us for the damage you have caused. The 2 alien fleets had formed up in opposing formations, their weapons trained on each other as much as on the human ships. Maria could see the tension building. These forces had been fighting each other for so long that they could barely resist. The urge to attack "Captain," her sensor officer called out quietly, "I'm detecting weapons charges building in both fleets. They're preparing to fight each other." Maria nodded. This was exactly what Earth strategists had predicted. The alien factions were so consumed by their war that they could not focus on anything else for long. "All human ships," she broadcast on the secure quantum channel, "prepare to demonstrate our capabilities. Target the weapon systems only. We want to disable, not destroy." The human fleet spread out in a complex formation that confused the alien commanders. Instead of the simple battle lines favored by both factions, the Earth ships moved in 3 dimensions using tactics that no galactic military had ever developed. "Unknown human vessels," War Commander Dex said. "You will withdraw from this area immediately. We have business with the Void Forces." "This is our system," Maria replied. "You will conduct no military operations here without our permission." The Hegemony Commander laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your ships are primitive. Your weapons are weak. You cannot threaten us. Are you sure about that?" Maria asked it. She gave the signal. 20 human ships fired simultaneously. But instead of the energy beams or missiles the aliens expected, they used weapons based on principles no galactic civilization had developed. Quantum disruptors that passed through alien shields as if they did not exist. Gravity pulse cannons that twisted space itself into a weapon. The effect was immediate and devastating. Every weapon system on every alien ship simply stopped working. Their shields collapsed. Their engines went dead. Their communication arrays went silent. 5 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy were rendered helpless in less than 10 seconds. "War Commander." Vex's voice came through on emergency frequencies, filled with shock and confusion. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our shields, our weapons, ... How did you ... "We have been watching your war for 30 years, Maria said calmly. "We have studied every weapon, analyzed every tactic, recorded every battle. Did you really think we learned nothing?" The Void Commander's mechanical voice carried a note of fear. "What are you?" "We are humans," Maria replied. "And this is our home? You brought your war here? You threatened our people?" "That was a mistake." Admiral Harrison's voice came through on the command frequency. "Captain Santos, both alien fleets are sending distress signals. Their home governments will know what happened here within hours." Maria nodded. There would be no hiding now. Within days, every major power in the galaxy would know that Earth was not the primitive world they had believed. The secret that humanity had kept for 3 decades was finally out. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Harrison said grimly, "we find out if 30 years of preparation was enough." On her sensors, Maria could see more ships approaching from deep space. Word was spreading fast through the galactic communication networks. Soon, Earth would face visitors from dozens of alien civilizations, all wanting to understand how a primitive species had developed weapons that could disable their most advanced warships. The age of human isolation was over. The galaxy was about to discover that the quiet little world in the outer rim had been hiding the most dangerous secret of all. They had been preparing for war. The meeting room beneath Geneva was the most secure place on Earth. Dr. Elena Vasquez checked her notes one final time as she waited for the alien delegates to arrive. As Earth's chief xenobiologist and head of the First Contact Committee, she would be humanity's voice in the most important negotiations in human history. The room itself had been designed to impress. High ceilings, polished marble floors, and walls lined with displays showing Earth cities, forests, and oceans. The message was clear. This was a world worth protecting. "They're coming through the transport now," her assistant announced. Elena took a deep breath. 3 days had passed since the incident in Jupiter space. 3 days of frantic preparation as Earth's leaders decided how to handle the galaxy's attention. The disabled alien ships had been towed to a neutral station near Saturn. Their crews treated with respect but kept under guard. The first to enter was War Commander Dex of the Hegemony Alliance. The alien stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in scales that shifted from silver to gold in the light. His forearms moved with military precision, and his large eyes missed nothing as they scanned the room. Behind him came Shadow Weaver Crix of the Void Collective, the Void. Being was harder to look at directly, its form seeming to bend light around itself. Dark robes hid most of its body, but Elena could see the occasional glimpse of pale skin and too many joints. Both aliens had come with small diplomatic teams, but Elena noticed how they positioned themselves as far apart as possible. Even here, in a neutral meeting, their hatred for each other was obvious. "Welcome to Earth," Elena said, standing to greet them. "I am Dr. Elena Vasquez. I speak for the United Nations of Earth in these proceedings." War Commander Thex examined her with obvious confusion. "You are quite small," he said. "Are you certain you have the authority to negotiate with warrior commanders?" "I am certain," Elena replied calmly. She had expected this reaction. Most galactic species valued physical size and strength above all else. They would learn that humans were different. Shadow Weaver Crix spoke in a voice like whispers in an empty room. "Your people have surprised us, Dr. Vasquez. Our intelligence suggested that Earth was a primitive world." "Your intelligence was incomplete," Elena said. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." The aliens took their places at the curved table, their teams arranging themselves behind them. Elena activated the room's holographic display system, causing both delegations to tense at the unexpected technology. "For 30 years, Elena began, we have watched your war consume the galaxy. We have recorded every battle, analyzed every weapon, studied every tactic." The display showed a three-dimensional map of local space, with thousands of red markers indicating battle sites. The scope of the destruction was staggering even from a distance. "Impossible," War Commander Thex sighed. "We would have detected your observation posts, would you?" Elena asked. She gestured, and the display changed to show footage of alien battles. The images were crystal clear, showing details that could only have been captured by someone very close to the action. Both alien commanders leaned forward, studying the recordings with growing alarm. These were classified battles, secret operations that no outsider should have witnessed. "The Battle of Kepler Station," Elena said as the display showed hegemony forces destroying a civilian habitat. 7 million non-combatants died when your forces targeted the life support systems. War Commander Thex's scales shifted to a darker color. "That was a military necessity. The station was harboring Void sympathizers. Were the children sympathizers too?" Elena asked quietly. The display changed again, showing Void Collective ships using biological weapons against a colony world. The death toll had been 12 million. "The Purge of Vega Prime," Elena continued. "Your people released a plague that killed everything larger than an insect." Shadow Weaver Crix remained motionless. The colony refused to surrender. They chose their fate. Elena studied both aliens carefully. She had spent years preparing for this moment, learning about their psychologies, their cultures, their justifications for the horrors they had committed. "Do you know what we found most interesting about your war?" she asked. Both commanders waited for her to continue. "Neither of you remember why it started." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena could see the truth in their reactions. After 30 years of killing, the original cause of the conflict had been lost in hatred and revenge. "The war began," Elena said, consulting her notes, "over mining rights in the Tau Ceti system. A trade dispute that escalated when a hegemony merchant vessel fired on a Void customs ship. That is not important," War Commander Thex sighed, but his voice lacked conviction. "Billions of lives," Elena continued, "hundreds of worlds, entire species driven to extinction. All because two civilizations could not negotiate a trade agreement." She let that sink in before continuing. "You came to our system to continue your war. Your actions threatened our people. Now you both seek our alliance, believing we are just another primitive species to exploit." Elena stood and walked to the display controls. The hologram changed to show Earth cities, teeming with life and activity. Let me be clear about something, she said. Earth has no interest in your war. We do not care about your trade disputes or your territorial claims. We care about the innocent beings caught in the crossfire. War Commander Thex leaned forward aggressively. You cannot remain neutral forever. The galaxy is divided. You must choose a side. Must we? Elena asked. She activated another display, this one showing the current positions of all alien forces in local space. We count 47 different species actively fighting in your war. How many of them chose their side freely? Shadow Weaver Crix shifted in its chair. Many species have joined us willingly. After you conquered their homeworlds, Elena said. After you gave them the choice between service and extinction, the alien delegations began to look uncomfortable. They were used to negotiations with species that feared them, that begged for mercy or sought to join the winning side. Elena showed no such fear. We have a different proposal, she said. The display changed again, showing a detailed map of the Sol system. But now it revealed the true extent of Earth's defenses. Orbital platforms, hidden bases, patrol routes for dozens of ships. This is our space, Elena said. No military vessels from either faction will be permitted here without our permission. Any ship that enters Sol system will be stopped and searched. Any crew that commits hostile acts will be detained. War Commander Thex stood abruptly, his scales flashing with anger. You dare to threaten us? Your ships may have surprised us once, but we have fleets that could crush your entire world. Could you? Elena asked calmly. The display shifted one final time, showing long-range sensor data from across the galaxy. Elena had been saving this revelation for the right moment. We have been watching you for 30 years, she said. We know the location of every major fleet, every supply depot, every command center. We know your battle plans before your own commanders do. The alien delegation stared at the display in shock. The data was impossibly detailed, showing ship movements and strategic positions that should have been highly classified. How? Shadow Weaver Crix whispered. We learned from you, Elena said. Every piece of technology you discarded, we studied. Every communication you broadcast, we intercepted. Every weakness you revealed, we noted. She walked around the table, meeting the eyes of each alien delegate. You fight with passion and hatred, she continued. You make decisions based on emotion and pride. But we have been watching with cold calculation, learning everything we need to know to defend ourselves. War Commander Thex slammed his fist on the table. What do you want from us? Elena returned to her seat. We want you to stop fighting in our space. We want compensation for the damage you caused to our installations. And we want you to consider our proposal for ending this war. You would mediate between us? Shadow Weaver Crix asked, its voice carrying a note of surprise. No, Elena said. We would enforce peace. She activated one final display, showing a section of space near Earth. It was marked as a neutral zone with clearly defined boundaries and patrol routes. This will be a ceasefire zone, she announced. Any refugee from your war will find sanctuary here. Any ship that approaches peacefully will be welcome. But any attempt to bring weapons or violence into this space will be met with immediate response. Unacceptable, War Commander Thex declared. We cannot allow Void Forces to use your territory as a safe haven. Equally unacceptable, Shadow Weaver Crix agreed. Hegemony ships cannot be permitted to resupply in neutral space. Elena smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Then perhaps you should end your war. The aliens stared at her in shock. The concept was so simple, yet so foreign to their thinking that they seemed unable to process it. 30 years of fighting, Elena said quietly. Trillions dead. Countless worlds destroyed. And for what? You have both forgotten why you even started this conflict. She stood and moved to the window that looked out over Lake Geneva. The peaceful scene of boats on calm water seemed like another universe compared to the galactic war zone the aliens knew. Humanity offers you something neither side has had in decades, she said. A chance to stop fighting, a chance to rebuild. A chance to remember what you were before the war consumed everything you cared about. When she turned back to the aliens, she saw something unexpected in their eyes. Not anger or defiance, but uncertainty. For the first time in years, someone had offered them an alternative to endless war. "You cannot enforce peace across the galaxy," War Commander Thex said, but his voice lacked its earlier conviction. "Can't we?" Elena asked. "You came here expecting to find primitives. Instead, you found weapons that could disable your most advanced ships. What else do you think we might have developed in 30 years of preparation?" The meeting ended without resolution, but Elena knew she had planted seeds of doubt in both factions. As the alien delegates returned to their ships, they carried with them the knowledge that Earth was not just another species to be conquered or recruited. Humanity had positioned itself as something new in galactic politics. Not conquerors or victims, but guardians. And the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. Captain Lisa Morrison knew they were testing humanity's resolve from the bridge of her ship. The Terra's hammer, she watched the hegemony blockade fleet take position around Mars. 12 massive warships had arrived during the night. Their weapons, trained on the mining facilities and transport routes that connected the Red Planet to Earth. "They're not responding to our warnings," her communications officer reported. "War Commander Thex claims they have the right to inspect all vessels in this region." Lisa studied the tactical display. The alien ships were positioned to control every approach to Mars, effectively cutting off trade between the planets. It was a classic pressure tactic, designed to force Earth's hand without actually firing the first shot. "Any word from the Void Forces?" she asked. 3 of their ships just dropped mines around the Jupiter trade routes, Lieutenant Hayes replied from his sensor station. "They're calling it a safety precaution to protect shipping from hegemony raiders." Lisa shook her head. Both alien factions were playing the same game. They wanted to force humanity to choose sides by making neutrality impossible. What they did not understand was that every act of aggression only strengthened Earth's resolve. "Captain," her tactical officer announced, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Harrison." The main screen shifted to show the Admiral's weathered face. Behind him, Lisa could see the busy command center where Earth's military leaders were coordinating humanity's response to the alien pressure. "Captain Morrison," Harrison said, "the President has authorized Operation Clear Sky. You are to remove all unauthorized vessels from our space. Use whatever force is necessary." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Operation Clear Sky was the contingency plan they had hoped never to use. It meant taking on both alien factions simultaneously, something that would have been suicide for any other species, but humanity had advantages the aliens did not know about. "Understood, Admiral," she replied. "What are our rules of engagement?" "Disable if possible, destroy if necessary," Harrison said grimly. "But Lisa, make sure they understand that we are not to be underestimated." The transmission ended, and Lisa turned to her crew. The Terra's hammer was one of the newest ships in Earth's fleet, built with technology that combined human innovation with 30 years of studying alien science. Her crew had trained for this moment their entire careers. "All stations, battle." "Ready?" she announced. "This is not a drill." Around her, the bridge came alive with activity. Weapon systems powered up, shields activated, and the ship's quantum communication array linked them instantly with every other human vessel in the solar system. Lisa opened a channel to the hegemony blockade fleet. "War Commander Thex," she said. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from Martian space." The alien commander's reply came quickly, his voice filled with amusement. "Captain Morrison, you have one small ship. We have 12 warships, each more powerful than anything in your primitive fleet. Surely you do not intend to fight us?" "Actually," Lisa said calmly, "I do." She cut the transmission and activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across the solar system, 20 human ships received her signal simultaneously. All vessels. "This is Terra's hammer," she announced. "Execute Clear Sky. Target the blockade fleet." What happened next would have been impossible using conventional tactics. Instead of converging on the alien ships, The human fleet attacked from multiple directions at once. Ships that had been hidden throughout the asteroid belt suddenly appeared behind the hegemony formation. Others emerged from the shadow of Mars's moons, but the most shocking surprise was the planet itself. Mars had been humanity's first major colony, established 50 years earlier as a mining and research outpost. What the aliens did not know was that the entire planet had been turned into a fortress during the decades of galactic war, hidden beneath. The red dust were weapon emplacements that had been disguised as geological formations. The polar ice caps concealed massive shield generators. Even the orbital stations that appeared to be simple mining platforms were actually battle stations in disguise. "Target locked," her weapons officer announced. "Fire," Lisa ordered. The first salvo from the human fleet caught the hegemony ships. Completely off guard. Instead of the energy weapons they expected, the Earthships used gravity distortion cannons that twisted space itself into a weapon. The alien shields, designed to deflect particle beams and plasma bursts, were useless against attacks that bypassed physical barriers entirely. War Commander Thex's flagship shuddered as its engines went offline. Around it, the other hegemony. Ships found themselves unable to maneuver as human gravity weapons locked them in place. "Impossible," Thex's voice crackled over the communication channels. "Our sensors show no weapon signatures. How are you doing this?" Lisa smiled grimly. The gravity weapons were one of humanity's greatest innovations, developed by studying the way black holes affected space-time. The aliens had never encountered anything like them because they required a deep understanding of physics that most species never developed. "Surrender your ships," she broadcast to the alien fleet. "This is your only warning." But the hegemony commander was too proud to give up without a fight. His ships began returning fire, their massive energy cannons lighting up space with deadly brilliance. The human response was swift and devastating. Instead of trying to match the aliens' firepower, Earth's ships used their superior speed and coordination to strike from unexpected angles. They moved like a school of fish, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be without any visible communication. Within minutes, half the hegemony blockade was disabled. The remaining ships found themselves surrounded by human vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. "How are they moving so fast?" one of the alien commanders demanded over an open channel. The answer was another human innovation. While the aliens used subspace radio for communication, which had a slight delay even at the speed of light, humanity had developed quantum entanglement communicators. Each ship's computer was linked to every other ship instantaneously, allowing them to coordinate with perfect precision. "War Commander," Lisa called out to the lead hegemony ship. "Your options are surrender or destruction. Choose quickly." Before Thex could respond, new contacts appeared on the sensors. The Void Collective fleet that had been mining the Jupiter routes was approaching at maximum speed. "Hegemony scum," came the mechanical voice of Shadow Weaver Crix. "Your defeat brings us great pleasure. Perhaps now you will learn respect for superior forces." Lisa realized that the Void Commander had misunderstood the situation. Seeing the hegemony ships disabled, he assumed that humanity was allied with the collective. "Shadow Weaver Crix," Lisa said, "you are also in violation of our space. Withdraw immediately or face the same fate as the hegemony fleet." There was a moment of shocked silence before the Void Commander replied. "You dare threaten us as well? We came to assist you against our common enemy." "You came to exploit the situation," Lisa corrected. "We have no common enemies. We have no allies in your war. We want all of you out of our space." The Void ships had moved into weapons range, their dark hulls bristling with the exotic energy weapons they favored. These vessels were smaller than the hegemony ships but more maneuverable, designed for hit-and-run attacks. "You have made a grave error," Shadow Weaver Crix said. "We offered you partnership. Now you will learn the cost of refusing the collective." The Void ships attacked without further warning, their weapon systems charging with the distinctive whine of antimatter containment fields. But they found the same thing the hegemony had discovered. Human defenses were unlike anything they had encountered. Lisa's ship fired its quantum disruptors. Weapons that operated on principles the aliens had never imagined. Instead of destroying matter, they disrupted the fundamental forces that held atoms together. Void ships that were hip simply fell apart at the molecular level, their crews safely contained in emergency pods as their vessels ceased to exist. "Target their engines only," Lisa ordered her weapons officer. "We want prisoners, not casualties." The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Two of the most advanced alien fleets, representing civilizations that had fought for decades, were systematically disabled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The human ships moved with a coordination that seemed impossible. They anticipated every alien tactic, countered every strategy, and responded to every threat with weapons that bypassed every known defense. Within an hour, both alien fleets were dead in space, their crews contained in emergency shelters, while human ships moved in to secure the disabled vessels. Lisa opened a channel to both alien commanders simultaneously. "This is Captain Morrison," she said. "Your fleets are captured. Your crews are safe, but will remain in our custody until this situation is resolved." War Commander Thex's voice carried a note of defeat. "How? Our ships are the finest in the galaxy. Our weapons can crack planets. How did you defeat us so easily?" "You fight the way you have always fought," Lisa replied. "With brute force and outdated tactics. We fight with our minds." Shadow Weaver Crix made a sound like static interference. "This is impossible. No single species can stand against both our fleets." "You're right," Lisa said. "No single species in your galaxy could do this. But we are not from your galaxies. Civilization. We developed independently, without your limitations." She activated her ship's holographic display system, broadcasting the signal to both alien fleets. The image showed Earth's solar system as it really was, not the primitive outpost the aliens had believed, but a fortress that had been prepared for decades. "You see weapons and think of destruction?" Lisa continued. "You see enemies and think of conquest? But we see problems and think of solutions. We spent 30 years solving the problem of your war." Admiral Harrison's voice came over the secure channel. "Captain, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout local space. Word is spreading fast. Every major power in the galaxy is sending ships to investigate." Lisa nodded. She had expected this. The defeat of both hegemony and void forces by an unknown species would send shockwaves throughout galactic civilization. "How many ships?" she asked. "Conservative estimate? 200 vessels from 15 different species. They'll be here within the week." Lisa looked at the disabled alien ships floating in space around her. Two of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy, defeated without a single human casualty. It was an impressive demonstration, but she knew it was only the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that the quiet little world in the outer rim had developed something far more dangerous than advanced weapons. They had developed the ability to think differently, and that was going to change everything. The greatest fleet in galactic history hung in space above Earth. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Cheyenne Mountains, watching the tactical display that showed 200 alien warships from 15 different species. They had come to investigate the rumors of a primitive world that had somehow defeated both hegemony and void forces. They had found something far more terrifying than they expected. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from 12 different species. They all claim authority over this sector." Marcus almost smiled at the irony. The galaxy's greatest powers had rushed to Earth expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found themselves facing a mystery that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. "Any response from our diplomatic channels?" he asked. "Dr. Vasquez reports that the alien ambassadors are demanding immediate explanations. They want to know how we developed our technology and whether we represent a threat to galactic stability." Marcus nodded. The aliens were afraid, though they would never admit it. For the first time in their history, they faced a species that had developed outside their understanding. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "the lead hegemony vessel is moving toward Earth. Admiral Corvex himself is aboard? Marcus studied the massive dreadnought approaching his planet. Admiral Corvex commanded the largest fleet in hegemony space, a force that had conquered dozens of worlds. He was considered one of the finest military minds in the galaxy. He was about to learn how wrong that assessment was. Open a channel to all ships, Marcus ordered. His image appeared on screens throughout the solar system, visible to every alien vessel and their crews. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a species that had spent 30 years preparing for this moment. "I am Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force," he announced. "You have entered our space without permission. You have brought weapons of war to our peaceful system. This ends now." Admiral Corvex responded immediately, his voice filled with the arrogance of a conqueror. "Admiral Rodriguez, I command a fleet of 80 vessels. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender your forces and submit to hegemony authority. Are we outnumbered?" Marcus asked calmly. He activated Earth's true defense grid for the first time in its history. What the aliens had seen before was only a fraction of humanity's capabilities. Now, as stealth systems deactivated and hidden installations revealed themselves, the scope of Earth's preparations became clear. Weapon platforms emerged from asteroid fields where they had been disguised as mining equipment. Battle stations that had appeared to be space habitats powered up their defensive systems. The moon itself opened like a flower, revealing massive launch bays that had been hidden beneath its surface for decades, but the most shocking revelation was the fleet. What the aliens had thought was humanity's entire space force, 20 ships, was revealed to be just the advance guard. From hidden bases throughout the solar system came hundreds of human vessels, each one incorporating 30 years of technological advancement. "Admiral Corvex," Marcus said, "you came here with 80 ships, we have 500. You brought weapons designed to fight other aliens. We brought weapons designed to fight you specifically." The alien fleet commanders watched in growing horror as human ships surrounded them from every direction. These vessels moved with perfect coordination, their quantum communication systems allowing them to act as a single organism. "Impossible," Admiral Corvex whispered. "Our intelligence showed a primitive world with basic technology." "Your intelligence showed you what we wanted you to see," Marcus replied. "For 30 years, we have watched your wars and learned from your mistakes. Every battle you fought, we studied. Every weapon you used, we analyzed. Every tactic you employed, we countered." From the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Corvex could see the truth displayed on his sensors. The human fleet was not just larger than his own, it was technologically superior in ways that defied explanation. "How?" he demanded. Marcus activated the holographic display system, broadcasting to every alien ship simultaneously. The image showed a timeline of the galactic war, with thousands of battles marked and analyzed. "You fight with emotion," Marcus explained. "Hatred, pride, fear, revenge. These feelings make you predictable. But we watched with cold logic, calculating the best way to defeat every strategy you developed." The display changed to show weapon specifications, revealing the extent of human innovation. Gravity distortion cannons that could crush ships like tin cans. Quantum disruptors that dissolved matter at the subatomic level. Shield generators that bent space-time itself. "You copied our technology," Admiral Corvex accused. "We improved upon it," Marcus corrected. "Your plasma cannons are powerful but inefficient. Our particle beams have 3 times the range and half the energy cost. Your shields block energy but not gravity. Our defenses protect against forces you have not even discovered yet." Shadow Weaver Crix's mechanical voice joined the conversation. "You cannot have developed all this in isolation. Who are your allies?" "We have no allies," Marcus said. "We did not need them. We had something better, time and patience." The truth was both simple and devastating. While the galaxy's great powers had spent decades fighting each other, humanity had been building the most advanced military force in known space. They had done it slowly, carefully, learning from every alien mistake. "Admiral Rodriguez," came a new voice from the fleet. This was Prime Commander Zilith of the Crystalline Confederation, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. Surely you do not intend to fight all of us simultaneously? Fight you? Marcus asked. No, Prime Commander, I intend to stop you. The human fleet moved with sudden, terrifying precision. 500 ships acted as one, their weapons targeting the engine systems of every alien vessel simultaneously. The attack came without warning and with overwhelming force. In less than 10 minutes, the greatest armada in galactic history was dead in space. The aliens' weapons never had a chance to fire. Their shields, designed to protect against energy attacks, were useless against weapons that bypassed conventional physics. Their communications were jammed by quantum interference. Their engines were disabled by gravity wells that prevented faster-than-light travel. 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had been reduced to helpless hulks without a single shot being fired in return. This is impossible, Admiral, Korvax said, his voice filled with disbelief. No species can develop such technology independently. You keep saying that, Marcus observed. But here we are. He opened a communication channel to the entire galaxy, broadcasting on frequencies that would reach every civilized world within days. People of the galaxy, he began, I am Admiral Marcus Rodriguez, speaking for the United Worlds of Earth. For 30 years we have watched your civilizations destroy each other in endless war. Today, that war ends. The message was being recorded by every ship in the fleet, transmitted to home worlds throughout known space. What Marcus said next would reshape galactic civilization. We did not ask for this responsibility, he continued. We wanted only to live in peace. But you brought your violence to our home. You threatened our people. You forced us to act. The display screen showed Earth as it really was, not a primitive world, but the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, cities that house billions in perfect harmony, oceans clean and blue, skies free of the pollution that marked most industrial worlds. This is what we protected, Marcus said. Not just our planet, but our way of life. We learned to solve problems instead of creating them. We chose cooperation over conquest. Admiral Korvax found his voice again. What do you want from us? End to the killing, Marcus replied simply. 30 years of war have accomplished nothing except death and destruction. It stops now. You cannot enforce peace across the entire galaxy, Prime Commander Zilith protested. Even with your advanced technology, you cannot be everywhere at once. Marcus smiled for the first time since the battle began. Can't we? The holographic display changed to show a map of the galaxy. Hundreds of locations were marked with symbols that made the alien commanders gasp in recognition. Our observation posts, Marcus explained. We have been watching all of you for 3 decades. We know the location of every major fleet, every supply depot, every command center in civilized space. The implications hit the alien leaders like a physical blow. If humans could disable fleets this easily, and if they had been watching everything for 30 years, then nowhere in the galaxy was safe from their intervention. What you see here, Marcus continued, gesturing to the disabled fleets around, Earth is just the beginning. We have the capability to reach any system in known space within hours. Any commander who continues this war will find their ships disabled and their crews in protective custody. Shadow Weaver Crix made a sound, like breaking glass. You would impose your will on the entire galaxy? We would impose peace, Marcus corrected. Something you have all forgotten how to achieve. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on the communication channel, joining Marcus in the broadcast. Her diplomatic skills would be needed for what came next. The war is over, she announced. Not because we conquered you, but because we offer you something better. A chance to rebuild? A chance to remember what your civilizations were before they became obsessed with destruction. She activated a new display showing plans for reconstruction efforts across the galaxy. Refugee camps for displaced populations, medical aid for war-torn worlds. Technology sharing programs to help damaged civilizations recover. We offer this freely, Elena said. No strings attached. No demands for territory or tribute. We ask only that you choose peace over war. The alien commanders sat in stunned silence. They had come expecting to fight a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing beings who thought on a scale they could barely comprehend. And if we refuse? Admiral Korvax asked quietly. Marcus's expression grew cold. Then you will find your ships disabled every time you try to fight. Your weapons will fail, your communications will be jammed, your wars will become impossible to conduct. This is tyranny, Prime Commander Zelith protested. This is necessity, Marcus replied. You have proven that you cannot stop fighting on your own, so we will stop it for you? He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. But we hope it will not come to that. We hope you will choose to join us in building something better than the galaxy you have created through war. The communication ended, leaving the disabled alien fleets to contemplate their situation. Around them, human ships maintained perfect formations, their crews ready for any sign of continued hostility, but there would be no more fighting. The galaxy's greatest military powers had been defeated not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking. Humanity had solved the problem of galactic war by becoming strong enough to enforce peace. In the days that followed, the news would spread to every world in known space. The primitive species from the outer rim had become the galaxy's new guardians. The age of endless war was over, the age of human peace had begun.